Hey, it's your boy Hazzamaxman, living at large, keeping it real, 24/7, 365. And yes, I am exaggerating for comedic effect because life is dull. And a dull podcast, yawn central. Am I right or what? Ugh. Anywho's, I don't want this podcast to be boring, and as a fellow nobody, I believe it's appropriate that I introduce my other nobodies. So say howdy, hero.
Howdy.
My boy Jason.
Jason.
Farouk, anything to add?
Salutations.
And last but certainly not least, the brains of the podcast, ZRift.
I am Z.
Now, today is a special day. It is a day that will be earmarked in history books forever. The first episode of our podcast that is fully improv, so welcome to Chaos City, Population 5. And today, who knows what we're going to talk about? I certainly don't know. Someone said something about Cyberpunk, but what can I say? I don't really know what's going on, so does anyone want to take over that for me?
I'm afraid we can't talk about Cyberpunk because it's already crashed.
Got him. Oh no.
Huh.
What, you mean the game or the actual Cyberpunk universe crashed?
I'm talking
Both
about
at this
the
point,
game.
to be honest.
Boy.
Alright, so I guess the general gist of it is Cyberpunk is an absolute dumpster fire of a game that came out way too soon and absolutely disappointed everyone. Bad thing is, it was done by CD Projekt Red, which everyone kind of loved, and then all of a sudden, well, I guess we all kind of don't love them right now. They just prove that they're just another one of the EA boys, you know. One of the let's milk that cow while we still got the funds to it. But I feel the game is, you know.
I mean, hold on.
Yeah, I feel like Jason Mars and Hero.
That's a bit of a bold statement, I think.
Yeah, that's why I said it. Let's get some controversy.
Well, you gotta be bold. Be bold or be boring.
Let me hear what you gotta say
to
about
live
it.
by.
I think I'll agree with that. Unfortunately, my scales don't. So essentially, I think they did exactly the same thing for Witcher 3. And I think a lot of people who weren't familiar with how they did Witcher 3 and how they supported it, and then it became popular later, are actually they're the general public, and they've just turned up and gone, "Hey, this game is buggy," and then without everyone going, "Hey, this has literally happened last time," and no one. It's like, "Hey, did that thing happen last time?" And no one thinks about that. I think
the really weird thing that I think I need to mention super quickly is that Cyberpunk was advertised extremely well, and whatever we saw in trailers or ads looked amazing, almost unparalleled, and they had a massive budget apparently. Whatever research I did, I think somewhere said they had a $7 million budget, and I don't know if that's a lot or a little for games, but I'd imagine that's quite a lot, so
wait, how much
go wrong?
Did you say 7 million?
Yeah, apparently
that's not
$7 million.
That's not a lot. GTA
that's
was
not that. It's
250
not a lot.
million.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd assumed it would have been more.
Yeah.
No, apparently that's what it was, according to the research I did. $7 million budget.
Boy, that's a lot of profit for $7 million.
That sounds low.
Bearing in mind their publicity thing was quite,
And what, did they give 5 of it to Keanu Reeves?
Anyway.
But it is interesting because I do think you hear about the game and you see some of the dialogue scenes, and they actually are as good as would you expect from after playing Witcher 3. The main issue everyone's talking about is just it's a buggy piece of mess, and that's a shame. But also at the same time, that's not the game. It doesn't mean the game is shit. It just means it was poorly released.
All right, let me.
I think I'll agree with that. I think the statement that the game is bad because of that, it's I'm not gonna lie, everyone when Skyrim came out loved it, and it was in such a worse state, in my opinion, than Cyberpunk.
So just for clarification,
and still is.
So just for clarification, then, for our viewers who know as little as I do about this, does a buggy game not make it a bad one?
No.
What is the distinction here that you're talking about?
Well, the thing that I'm focusing on is the fact that it's essentially the same as my idea for why I don't like Sword and Shield in Pokemon, is that the game was sold to people under a pretense of it's going to be very, very sort of in depth. Your changes, your
you're starting a dumpster fire here.
your
starting to dumpster fire here.
choices will matter. There will be like there was a video by Cropecat where it was like you can buy apartments. You'll be able to romance a lot of people. You can do a bunch of things in the game.
I never heard about this.
I personally
He's
don't
talking about
think
Cyberpunk. He's not talking about Sword and Shield.
Okay, I thought he was talking about Sword and
Oh,
Shield.
good
for a
point.
second.
No.
I was like,
I said,
Just
what I'm
imagine,
saying-
Wow,
I'm a
that's a weird
10-year-old.
Pokemon
Let's
game.
get married. Just imagine you're playing.
Maybe
you're
you're
playing
picking
this.
this is the brand new direction. This is the brand new direction Pokemon needs to go in.
no.
You're
So
playing
my
version
reason-
of
my
Sword and Shield,
reasoning-
and you're like, I'm a 10-year-old.
my
Let me romance
reasoning
you.
for my reasoning for that is because the idea behind Cyberpunk and the way that it was sold under false pretenses. That's what I mean by Sword and Shield analogy.
Yes.
Because
Here's
Sword
the
and
thing.
Shield was also sold under false pretenses. Now with Cyberpunk, again, like I mentioned, there was a lot of mentioning of your choices will matter. You can romance people. You can buy apartments. You can do a bunch of things. They'll probably implement all of that later on. But the thing is, you can't do gameplay trailers and ask people to play the game and not allow them to like release their own footage, essentially, because that's what CG Projekt Red did. They gave you confirmed footage that you could review and approve and talk about on the internet, but they didn't let you see the bugs, the messes, the issues, so that consumers could be aware of what they're buying into. I personally think the game needed another 2 years at least, because
I agree.
it wasn't ready.
No, I agree. It's too ambitious. It was too ambitious to be released this soon.
Yeah, and the promises that were made the promises that were made with that game is for a game that is 2 years down the line. Like if you buy Cyberpunk now, you're essentially getting bootleg Cyberpunk, and then 2 years down the line, you might get something like Cyberpunk. You might get Cyberpunk.
And I think
instead of 77.
Cyberpunk as brought to you by Wish.
And
Yeah.
the thing
But
is, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Something important to mention: janky ass games can be good. I mean, I may be in the minority, but I'm certainly a fan of the Mass Effect games, and they are a hot mess.
Yeah.
They
No,
are
I
the
agree, I
peak
agree.
of a hot mess.
Yeah.
You can
But
run
you're
around
playing-
and suddenly fall into a floor, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's dope. That's cool because
Yeah.
it's a sexy piece of trash."
But you're playing you're playing those games for its story, and I think that's why it has the fan base it has, despite being really janky.
I also
point.
think it doesn't help that Cyberpunk had been hyped to death for years, like even
It was
before the
hyped
first
so
trailer.
much.
And I think
Okay.
that's the thing. Like when Mass Effect first came on the scene, it didn't have the hype that Cyberpunk
No.
did. So it was
No,
able to
definitely
generate
not.
it was able to generate a fan base who didn't really care it was janky, but really liked the story.
Yeah.
And so when the next sequels came out, people in word of mouth said, "Look, it's janky, but play it's really good." Whereas up until the third one, and then they kind of this is what's happening with Cyberpunk. People have associated that high standard that CD Projekt Red set with The Witcher 3
Hmm.
and said, "Okay, we expect the same thing." The problem is a lot of people didn't come into that game until 2-3 years after, and like I think it was I can't remember the expansion pack, but they have amazing expansion packs
They do.
with Witcher 3, and I honestly think that it was a mixture of Xbox and PlayStation wanting that to be a release title, and which kind of pushed the development soon. And a lot of people in the development team have said, "Look, this needed more time," and it's always the case. Developers say we need more time, and someone with money bags and importance goes, "Nah, it'll be fine." Now the problem is, it's kind of been proven right in time. Like you think of like No Man's Sky being the big kind of the one everyone thinks of. That's doing really well now.
Yeah.
That people don't hate that game anymore because the publishers stuck to it in the same way that CD Projekt Red did with Witcher 3.
Is what's worse in your opinion, this or No Man's Sky, in terms of the lie?
Sky was far bigger than Cyberpunk.
No Man's Sky definitely had No Man's Sky there's a galaxy, like you could explore everything. You will never meet someone else because you will have the whole universe, and like I mean the thing
And
with
you
the
can meet up with people if you can.
Likely because it's so
The
big,
thing-
and it's like it's not really more.
CD Projekt Red said, "Oh yeah, your choices will matter. You can buy apartments and stuff." But there was kind of a feeling that it's either going to be a lot more like GTA or a bit better than GTA and like more expansive, and your story might actually matter a bit. Like maybe your choices will like have a bit more of effect, kind of like a Mass Effect or something. But I'd say that it was the expectation for that was less than what people had for No Man's Sky. I'd say No Man's Sky
Can
was a
I
lot.
mention something about Cyberpunk and the GTA comparisons?
Mm.
Like,
Oh,
I know
yeah.
it's not a particularly insightful thought or anything, but like, those comparisons were hilarious. Like, in that Cropcat video, they're comparing Cyberpunk to GTA San Andreas and like the quality of how the game plays. And like, one of the examples is the main character goes swimming, and for some reason, you can see his shadow reflected on the building next to the water, and it's in the perfect shape of that, dead body chalk outline with like the legs spread in opposite directions and the arms up high either side. And I just thought, that's amazing. Like, that is just so bad. It's great.
I want to say
love that.
this in my personal opinion. I think Rockstar peaked with GTA 4. I think that is their most detailed game.
That is
I don't think
no,
5 compares.
no.
It's very interesting because I think actually before I'm gonna jump in before Hero starts going off on his rant.
Stop
I'm
his rant.
gonna fucking give you a rant, alright.
Because I believe you're both right here. Because I think, but what's changed is the emphasis of what game developers focus on. Like you look at Far Cry 2 and how reactive it is to the players and its environment and all those kind of things. Like how you set fire to something, it spreads, and all that kind of stuff, and how realism it is. And actually, I think people like, and when people compare GTA 4 to GTA 5, they use those same comparisons. Like they react more realistically and they act more kind of what we would expect a game to be if they want to do proper simulation. But that's not why we play these games. We play it for escapism. So you can easily say that GTA 4 did a better job of simulating what it would be like to be a gangster in New York in a very dark and gritty way. And then GTA 5 is your absolute opposite end of the spectrum, where it's a bit more kind of, hey, go gun ho. It's because they realized that people just installed all these cheats, decided to blow shit up, and decided to go, how about we get a game that actually reflects that, to have characters that actually do those, enables that kind of enjoyment to come from it. And I think that's what's happened in the gaming industry for me. It's like it's no longer about trying to be as realistic as possible, because you're going to get caught in that uncanny valley.
You do boil down gaming to one very basic question that the gaming industry have to ask their consumers. Do consumers play games because they want it to be as realistic as possible? Which does seem to be the modern trend of a lot of games, that they're optimizing graphics, they're optimizing the feel, there's controller feedback, and all this sort of jazz. Or do you play games for an escapist purpose, so you don't mind if the games don't link to real life whatsoever? Because there are certainly people like that. I know I play games for the escapism.
Yeah, I think that's consumer by consumer basis.
Yeah, but the game industry has to design their games based on that, right?
It's
and
a mixture
lot of games seem to
both.
go into realistic.
It's a mixture of both.
Like some people play Crackdown. Like Crackdown, some people play Crackdown or Saints Row for the escapism, because Saints Row is essentially the jokey version of GTA, and they play it because you can blow stuff up, you can be weird, you can do whatever you want to do in the games. But I think but some people also play GTA for the realism element of it, so it's a mixture of both. It depends on what the consumer really wants. When I was playing, the reason why I say that GTA 4 was the superior games was because a lot of the minute details were paid attention to. The story for me personally felt a lot more engaging and interesting than GTA 5. I know that they had three protagonists, so they had to focus on each three, but I didn't feel like there was any I felt like I was just doing a mission in GTA 5, whereas in GTA 4 I actually felt like I was watching, like, I guess a kind of like Hollywoody story interpretation of realism and gritty Eastern European aspect of it, but I enjoyed it. I felt like Nico was a lot more human, and I actually enjoyed that. Yeah, he's made mistakes. Yes, he's killed people, but he's just trying to do good by what he has, and I enjoyed that. I felt like people dunk on the driving mechanics in GTA 4. I personally enjoyed them, even though it's skiddy and everything everywhere, but you can feel that it changes with the environment. So when it's raining, it's different. When it's snowing or whatever, it's different. It feels like you're a different thing, and you have to adapt to it. And the sort of minor details and the things that you could do in that game, it really meant a lot to me as a person, as a consumer of that product, which is why I still play it till this day. Even I still play GTA.
You didn't want to say gamer.
What? Because we're not game, we're consumers. Let's be honest. That's the way they do
Gamer
it.
Culture
I would-
2021.
One thing I would argue before
Rockstar doesn't think gamers.
one thing I would argue before, obviously on terms of Rockstar, actually, I would say a superior game to GTA 4 is probably Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, because they went ham in
I think
realism.
that one.
Oh, no
They went
doubt.
ham.
I think that is
No
the
doubt.
pinnacle rather than GTA 4. Obviously, it's down to who
I
frames
agree.
what, I would say. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say in
I
terms
will-
of both your story elements, because Red Dead Redemption does similar things in terms of the story aspect, but also has that realism, but also has modern generation graphics. And it's kind of the whole encompassing, both immersive yet
Yeah.
realistic.
No, I'd agree. I think it is. I mean, obviously, everyone has their preferences for what they like out of Rockstar. I don't mind. I don't mind either the arcadey old nature, toy box nature of the old Rockstar games, or the more simulaty nature of their new ones. I think there's a place for both of them.
So, as
So
a
I am
gaming
completely
novice here,
fine with Red Dead 2.
as a gaming novice here, and I'm sorry, ladies, I know this cuts my sex appeal in half by like 2,000%, but
Jesus,
isn't
man.
Red Dead Redemption
That's
Rockstar's like
assumption.
flagship game?
No, GTA is. Red Dead's like the
GTA.
second. Probably.
GTA. I definitely
Yeah.
think the Red
Good to
Dead
know.
is their kind
Oh,
of more
classic.
niche market. And for me, I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
the one thing
interesting.
that I prefer Red Dead over GTA is that there isn't this kind of like massive difference between what the characters say and what you as a character do. Like your character is an outlaw in Red Dead Redemption. He can kill people. He can just go off and do whatever. And it doesn't feel like you've gone against the story. Whereas you have the entirety of GTA 4. This is my big weak point for GTA 4 is Nico going, "Oh, I want to live a quiet life," and then suddenly, like you as a character, decide to ram 30 cars and do do front flips off the bridge, and it's like you just go, "That's a really weird thing to contrast with."
I understand that stuff like that bothers a lot of people, where it's like there's a dissonance between the gameplay and the story. I've never really had that issue, but I can understand that being an issue with a lot of people. My thing with GTA 4, and I'm sorry to say this, but I think that game is fucking boring. Like, I think the story of that game sucks.
Hey, Roman,
You're
let me
entitled to
go
that
all
opinion.
in.
You're
I don't
entitled to
think.
that opinion.
Here's the thing. I don't think it suits GTA as well, because GTA in general is more of a comedic game in tone, and four of all of them feels the most like it wants to be serious. And I just
That
don't
was
think
the
it.
day Hero
I,
died.
I don't.
2021.
I don't think it suits. No, because more people are going to agree with me on the GTA 4 thing than they are like zero.
Oh, I'm just starting fires here.
I'm
I have
not
no
sure about
opinions
that.
on the
I
subject.
think a lot of people
I have
in
no opinions on the
retrospective
subject,
think
bro.
GTA 4 is actually a better game. Like it's a kind of thing where you realize, oh, we didn't realize what we had when we had it at the time. It's like Black and White 2, what everyone's saying about Black and White 2 now. We didn't realize how good we had it
Oh,
at
here we go.
GTA.
Here we go.
I loved Black and White 2 at the time. Don't count me as part of the.
I'm saying that's what like the general gist on the internet now is, everyone's jamming to Gen 5 remake music because we didn't realize how good it was at the time, and we used to dunk on the ice cream cone Pokemon. I'm not saying everyone here did it. I'm not saying I did it. I'm saying some people did back in the days. But
Okay.
what I'm saying is, with GTA 4, I think a lot of people are realizing now the amount of quality that we had assured in that game compared to what we're getting in GTA 5. Like if I'm comparing GTA 4 to 5, I will always pick 4. There will not be a ground for me to ever pick 5 as a game. I found 4 more enjoyable, more engaging. I found the online of 4 a lot more fun compared to.
Here's the
How
thing.
important is the
online in 4
online experience? How
Mhm.
important is the online experience to how
on the
good a game
player.
is?
Depends on the player, and it depends on the game as well. Like a game like Call of Duty, I imagine the online for that is the most important factor.
Yeah, that makes the money.
I think it's like that's kind of proven by the fact that when they brought out a online version of the game, it became the most popular version of said game. I think I personally think that the gaming industry, I think, has finally realized over the last couple of years, and I think I talked about it earlier a couple of years back, saying the industry is going to go either single player only experiences or you have to be online. because
Well,
the
see,
days
this
of
is the
having
thing,
like a single
actually.
player, then having a little bit of an online thing doesn't really work. So I'm very interested to see how they approach that for stuff like GTA 6, whether they really approach it like as a try and very much focus on the story and then kind of have the online kind of with it like they did with Red Dead 2, or make it one of these things that's absolutely optimized to be online.
I think
Well, no,
You make
yeah.
a very
the online
interesting
element of
point.
it will, like, if you keep making a game an always online game, will not work. I don't think that there will be there is a market for it. Yeah, there is a market for online only games and playing multiplayer games and stuff. But I
Well,
don't
it's
think
the
in the long term it will.
popular market at the moment, though.
It's the most
Yeah.
popular as well. Yeah, but I feel like it because it relies too much on having things like a stable internet connection, and there are many places that won't have that access. Like, they'll have internet, but they just won't have a stable or continuous access. Like, some games demand you to log into like a service like Uplay or something before you can actually play the actual game you want to play. And I don't think that will always work. What if I'm, for example, go on holiday and I take my computer with me, or I take my console with me, and then I all of a sudden want to play a game, a single player game, or just like play the game, but then I have to log into a service to then be able to access the game. I don't think it works. I think
I get what you're getting at, and I don't agree it's a good thing, but I think it's becoming normalized now. I think that's the difference.
Particularly with the spread of the ability for people to now access Wi-Fi has actually significantly improved.
Mhm.
Particularly since we talk about like when Xbox One first got announced, like you think about where the backlash that got. But also it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be online online only or online all the time. You can still have, like, for example, Rocket League is a game that you would say is a game you can only play multiplayer, but there's still some bare bones single player stuff whilst the Wi-Fi is struggling, if the Wi-Fi is not doing very well. And I think that's the model that will continue. I think there'll be like a base version of like, oh yeah, you can do some training and here a couple of stuff for when you're not online, but the majority of the game requires Wi-Fi. And I think a lot more games are going that direction, or going purely getting single player and delivering a much more kind of better experience for the single players who are looking for that kind of game. Like, I think Celeste is a great example of it was a great single player game that a lot of single players just love to play and just pick up. Like, you can just pick that up and play it without any problems.
The
feel like
difficulty I see for the gaming industry is that, obviously, in the pandemic, where most people aren't allowed to meet up and go out and about, games are a great way for people to have like social connectivity. So you want games that rely on online and multiplayer, but then on the other hand, you have to balance that with satisfaction of the consumer, that lots of consumers like myself only play single player games, are more concerned about the narrative and the story. I don't really like the online aspect of games because, I mean, online witchcraft, no, burn. But like,
Yeah, because the last thing I want to do
where's
is
the gaming
get
industry
told
going to go?
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is get told how much of a piece of shit I am by people online I've never met. And I think
Farouk,
that's
Oh yeah,
Farouk,
I love that.
what do you think, Farouk?
I don't know. I think all the points that I was going to mention have already been brilliantly put out. So no, I think I think
Farouk's the party animal
Yeah,
of the podcast.
he
Watch out,
also
folks. Party animal.
agrees. He also agrees that GTA 4 sucks.
I mean
I don't think that. I don't think that's. No, I don't think that's
Stop
what he
putting
means.
words into his mouth.
I don't think so.
not personally
I don't
played
think
it,
that's
so I
right.
can't verify.
I think he's been coaxed into saying something like that. I think that's a full statement. Right there.
No, I haven't played GTA 4.
Sounds like someone's trying to find the 100,000 votes in Pennsylvania again, all over again.
We'll put a poll for it for our one viewer.
Stop the vote! Stop the vote! We got the one vote in. That's all we need.
One vote to rule them all.
One vote to bind them.
I mean, I think obviously, yeah, GTA. I haven't played GTA 4, nor have I properly played GTA 5. I played at a friend's house, but not properly. But I have played Red Dead Redemption 2, so obviously I can't.
Which is better than both.
Which is yeah, okay. Which obviously.
Have you seen them horse testicles, man? HD.
Hey, it's a pointless. It was a pointless detail they put it in. I'll say that, but they
I do love the fact that the horse shits all over my gameplay.
Yeah.
Hero didn't start.
It's like
fire.
that's the thing. That's the thing. That's why people went too far on realism. I think that's what, funny enough, what they didn't do for GTA 5, what they did do in GTA 4, is they could have done that. Like, there's a question of why. Why did they do that? They spent a lot of time and effort doing that. For example, like you talk about Cyberpunk, basically stuck to their bread and butter, which is conversations and choice dialogues and branching storylines.
Yeah.
That was the main thing that made Witcher 3 really likable. The fact you have a conversation with some random guy, and then 2 hours later you realize because you had that one conversation, you can now overthrow the king. And stuff like that. And I think that's really kind of got lost in the bugginess, mainly because no one's got there because bugs stopped them. But it's frustrating that there is underneath once if you fixed all the bugs, which are happening, and they're working. Developers are working basically overtime, from what I was able to find out, to fix it. Like, once that happens, which is exactly what happened with Witcher 3, there'd be a very good game there.
Agreed. Yeah.
I look forward to playing that game in 2 years' time.
But that's what happened with Witcher 3.
Witcher 3 is not devoid of bugs.
Oh no.
Let me say this though. I feel like this is a lesson to everyone that is a gamer or consumer or whatever you want to count yourself. Just pre-order culture is not good. Just don't buy into it. Don't buy into it.
Early access caused this. The idea that you can release something in broken.
It's you know what? It's not even exclusive to games at all, though. It's like, don't give in to hype culture at all. Hype culture's bad.
From me as a person who never did it before and then did it for this one game. And
oh no!
I mean, to be
Hero,
fair,
you can't say that.
To be fair,
you can't say that. If you say that, you kill Supreme. You kill the company Supreme. You're gonna destroy their business model, man.
Yeah. No, but
to be fair, though, you liked
killing
it.
Supreme.
Really did like it. I would say that.
Yeah.
I expected there to be bugs, so I thought, it's first day release. I kind of went, I've never played a game before on day one at all ever before. Usually I wait a while and then buy, but then I thought for this, just as say I've done it once and then I'm done. I bought day one and I knew there was going to be bugs because I thought it's just come out. Likelihood is that they've only played it on their developer console, and then when I play it, there's going to be all sorts of things like run amok. So I did expect there to be crashes, and I did expect there to be issues. So I kind of went into the game with the headset, and I was like, right, it's still a great game. There are things which, when I look back in hindsight, I go, maybe they I thought this was going to be there, and I thought that was going to be there, but it wasn't too major. When I was playing it, is only when I started watching other videos of other people going, oh yeah, they promised this feature and they promised this feature, and it's like, that's true, they did promise that. But then when you go back, you also have to realize that when they were released the E3 trailer, first of all, we found out recently that it was scripted, and it was faked. The whole thing was faked, which was kind of like bad press. But they did say that this was early, like some of the content may be removed from it. So that's what I think most of this backlash is. I think when they released the E3 trailer, they had all sorts of cool like third-person cutscenes and a drone slot for your character, so you can use drones to sneak in rather than yourself. We also some features that were expected. But the thing is that they set up those expectations. If they didn't set up those expectations, I think people would have responded to this a lot better than they have currently.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that this is not the first time a company has done this.
It won't be the last.
Remember Watch Dogs? Remember Watch Dogs?
This was the exact example I was going to bring up.
The PS4 and the Xbox One first came out?
That was that I got hyped for that game. I mean, I have not played a single game. I have not played a single Watch Dogs games because of how much that burnt me. I literally just go, I am not funding this franchise. I've just signed.
No, yeah, same. It's like too little, too late.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
No.
Only if you're bringing up good points.
let me
because I hate bad devil's advocate.
Oh, come on.
Go ahead, Hazza.
Come on, dude. You're talking about Hazzamaxman. If I'm not full of good points, I don't exist. Like, come on.
Okay.
Your existence.
So let me put on that devil advocate's hat for a second. I mean, when I was younger, I used to exclusively pre-order Pokemon games, get them and play them first day, and
Yeah.
there was never any large bugs or faults or recalls or technical difficulties that I vividly remember. I vividly remember having no problem with pre-ordering and playing any of those games on the first day. And then you got the extra, if not completely unnecessary stuff like box art or a plastic toy that you'll keep for a week and then lose because you're 10. So, like, I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Hmm.
Like, you know.
Talking
So
about
then,
Pokemon,
Okay.
is
Yeah, go on.
pre-ordering really such a bad thing?
Pre-ordering is, I think back then it was more okay because releasing a game half finished wasn't the fucking norm.
Hold on, hold on, hold on,
Yeah.
hold on, hold on,
And
hold on.
also,
Let's
we're
get that
dealing with
in
we're
here.
talking about a game that is actually being published. So if we're talking about Nintendo, they have control that they know that game is only going to be released on their console, and it's their
Exactly.
company developing
You
it.
have
Yes.
They have
because
complete control from start to finish of that
The thing-
development. If
ZRift,
they
you
want
have
to
something
delay
to
it,
add
they
after?
fucking can.
the
Yeah,
thing you're talking about,
exactly.
the thing that you're talking about very specific because you mentioned Pokemon, you're talking about a specific game and a specific company as well. Nintendo always has that mantra that a delayed game will eventually become a good game, whereas a rush
Yeah.
game will always be bad. That is
Say
their
what you
mantra.
want. Say what you
they
want
will-
about Nintendo as a company, and like, there's a lot that
So
that
many
you can say,
things. So many things.
Yeah.
like their
That's why-
business practices, but
Yeah.
their quality control is amazing.
Yeah.
That's why I can feel assured, like knowing if I buy Mario Odyssey day one, then I know I'm getting
It's
a
not
game
going to
that
be
Yeah.
check.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
I'm getting
exactly.
a safe game. I know I'm not going to get a buggy mess.
Mhm.
I know that if I'm buying something from Nintendo, I know what I'm getting into. That's why I support their company. That's why I predominantly play Nintendo games, because you know that you will be relatively safe compared to buying a game from Ubisoft or EA, because you just know you're going to be in trouble with that. You know
Yeah.
you're actually buying an early access game. You're buying the access to be able to then later down the line be able to play the full game. Like, who knows when later down the line is? It could be 6 months. It could be a year. So yeah.
I mean,
I think.
go on.
Sorry. I think the one
Farouk,
thing
Farouk, go
about
ahead.
when it comes down to downgrades
Jason.
from E3, like the E3 stuff is pure developers. Developers have gone, this is what we want to create. This is our creative vision. And you know the reason why none of those are in is because someone somewhere higher up just goes, no, we need to meet this release date, that's because we need it for our marketing thing or whatever. And the problem is that when as soon as that control is taken away from developers, but also at the same time, developers, if they just take 2-3 years extra to make a game and it's still because they've just been adding more and more features without actually fixing the bugs, it doesn't actually make it any better. It's just still the same buggy mess of release. It's just an over bloated game.
Not even
And
developers.
it is that hard ground where you go, okay, that's a really shit position to be in.
Yeah.
Farouk, you wanted to say
Gaming will
something?
never be. I just want to say, gaming will never be what consumers want it to be in terms of like
Oh no.
the scope and grand thing. As long as you keep restricting development time, like what it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Farouk?
Also, games will
Guys,
never be.
come on.
Games will
Come
never
on.
be
Let's-
what you expect if as long as the companies don't make false promises all the time. They make the promises and then people go off of those promises like, oh yeah, this game is going to be this. There's like No Man's Sky promised a whole universe, but then delivered us with a botched universe from the get-go. But I just want to mention what Jason was saying about developers as well. In some cases, it's not even the developers that do the whole E3 aspect of it, because I remember Anthem when it was shown off, the developers didn't even know what they were creating after. They didn't know what there was no basis for a game. There was like, oh, we want a little bit of Iron Man, a little bit of flying, a little bit of this. But Anthem was great at E3,
A
but the
little bit
developer
of Monica in my life. Sorry.
Yeah.
what kind of game making.
Farouk,
Anyway,
what did you want to say?
Farouk?
Farouk?
Okay, so this is something actually I would say there's a comparison between Nintendo and every other company, and that is the grandness and more complexity of like Ubisoft, because the games that CD Projekt Red and all those kind of companies went for are quite grand, quite big, quite complicated, easy to bloat. Nintendo, and this is something I've noticed, they've stuck with their guns with what they know works, and they stick to something I would argue is quite simplistic. They don't go for grandioso like Anthem. They don't go, oh, you can be Iron Man. They go, here's Mario jumping. We've got him doing it just as good as he did the last time, but it's more.
No,
I would say, if you know what I mean.
that is a valid point. That is a very valid.
He does
point.
make a salient point. He does make
the
very
thing
important
is,
point.
Yes, there's quality control for Nintendo, but also Nintendo don't have to deal with, the scale of other big companies. So that's kind of I totally get what you're getting at.
Mario in 480p. Now you can have him in 720p.
The thing is that the mechanics aren't like new. When I say new, I don't mean it offensively. I just mean as in like they start off with 2D. They make Mario jump in 2D. Then they just add a third dimension. Then they add the ability to throw the hat.
Farouk trashes Mario. Clickbait title.
I'm just saying they've done it quite cleverly, because instead of like Nintendo, like anyone else, like Ubisoft starting this whole grand adventure from nothing, what Nintendo has done is gone. Let's start with Mario on 2D. Add the third dimension. Add this. So you're getting innovation, but you're not losing the original. You're not like creating something entirely new. You're taking your core concept and improving it. And that's the things these companies aren't doing. And that's why Nintendo is winning in that regard, because they're taking something they know works. They've already got the code. They've already got the assets. They just need to tweak it and improve it so that when they release their next game, it's just as good, but now it's got this new feature which makes it better. And that's what makes them
I
win.
agree. Nintendo in general play a lot safer.
Honestly, not fashionable opinion right now, and I know, sorry, listener, I know you're going to want to kill me, but you'll never find me. Anyway, being a casual-ass Nintendo gamer in 2021 is just a great place to be. Like, you see these games with much grander ambition failing and falling to the ground like an uncooked pancake hitting the floor. But like, as a Nintendo gamer, you're getting a set standard. As a Nintendo gamer, you're getting a set standard, and it is good. Like, what can I say?
Sorry. I think the quality control on that sentence just failed. I think we just got a bug in that system. Do you want to finish that sentence? Or
yeah, that was the end of the sentence.
Error 404. End of sentence not found.
That was the end of the sentence. That being a Nintendo gamer is a safe place to be right now. That okay, yes, the games aren't as grand on scale as Cyberpunk, but at least they are a set standard.
I think that's what Farouk was getting at, though. It's a safe place, and it won't be anything more than a safe place.
I won't debate the funness of it. I won't debate the funness of it, because I think, obviously, if it wasn't fun, people wouldn't buy it. It wouldn't be as big as it is. But Nintendo know what they're doing. It's not like Ubisoft building an Assassin's Creed game from the bottom up. Which
was originally going to be a sequel.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, hey, this is quite a neat gameplay. Let's do something else with it."
Yeah,
exactly.
But in general, like, I know your game taste, Farouk, and I know you're not super into. You prefer stuff that takes risks in general.
I think the things that take risks. I mean, sure, you're going. There's times where you're going to play a risky game that took risks, and it's going to be bad. That's the nature of the beast. But I think there needs to be kudos, in regards to people who take risks, because they're at least trying something slightly new and different. But I do respect Nintendo for their ability to go, here's our core concept, here's new features, and we'll build off it in the future. So it's not staying. It's not selling you the same game like Call of Duty would.
Yeah,
which is them,
or FIFA,
but it's not revolutionizing the industry.
No, I wouldn't.
And you could argue it hasn't since the late 90s.
So let's slightly shift topic. What games are we currently playing or currently looking forward to?
I mean, on the CD Projekt thing, I'm making my way through fucking Witcher 3, and I think that if you want to talk about hype, like, there is not one lie in the quality of what people have said about Witcher 3. I think it's one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wasn't into Witcher 3 when it came out. I played it at launch.
And why was that? You weren't
I
into it at
think
first?
I thought the combat sucked, and I you know what? I don't think it's great even to this day. But
So
I
what is
think
the combat system for those who haven't played it?
well, it's like it's mainly sword based combat, like so it's an action RPG.
So like
Um,
Ghost of Tsushima.
yeah, I think Ghost of Tsushima's sword combat's a lot more smooth and fun, but Witcher
Mhm.
3 has a lot of extra elements in it, so you can like cast signs and stuff like that. And once you start leveling and learning more skills, that's when it kind of branches out and gets more fun.
Mm.
And you could argue too easy. Like I started on like the second lowest difficulty, and now I've gone to the second highest because the game kind of got a bit too easy because you can spam that shield. You can spam the shield cast thing
Yeah.
and win most fights. But Witcher 3 is excellent, and it took me 6 years to get around to it again, give it another shot. But I love it. The story's excellent. The characters are excellent. I understand why people were super hyped up about Cyberpunk because of Witcher 3's quality. I genuinely get it.
So the
Like,
rest of you, what games are you playing or looking forward to currently?
Well, I'm playing a lot of Rocket League because it's easy, simple,
yeah,
easy to
Just
Rocket
pick
League's
up.
fun.
Rocket League.
I
Rocket
mean
League's
that.
fun.
I mean that's the thing. Like for me, it's like particularly with everything's going on. The one thing I will say about Witcher 3 is you have to get into it. Is that
Yes.
you have to give it time.
Yeah, the
Like
prologue's not great.
oh no, it's not. I mean, I've just looking up. I've only done 30 hours in Witcher 3, and I know I
Yeah.
barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Like you need hours and hours and that. And I suppose the thing for me, like I haven't really. The one thing that always frustrating me, particularly as I spent basically the last year at work or doing something, is I haven't been able to get into like a really good story-based game like I used to. I always used to have a story-based game I used to have on the side. Like
Speaking of story-based games, I recently, and I have no shame in saying this, great achievement for a terrible ass gamer like I am. I finished Fire Emblem Three Houses on casual difficulty when all of my allies could respawn after every match. I have no shame, but most recent game that I finished, and boy, did I feel great after throwing 90 hours down the toilet when I could have, well, studied, exercised, learned a language, been a productive human being, but it was the greatest day of my life. So many hours, so much story,
yeah.
so many amazing cutscenes, so many tactics had to be exercised, and I finally reached the end point just to say, congratulations, you've married no one, but at least you beat the game.
Even in the game, you can't get a waifu.
Yeah.
I mean, Three Houses is great. That's one I would probably recommend Farouk. A Nintendo game I would recommend. Like, I think you would like it.
Okay.
It does take a lot of risks.
So here's the thing. I assuming the rest of you guys all have Switches.
No.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Some
No,
of
I
us
don't.
do.
Yeah.
Switch Club.
Okay, we got a good mix because that's the thing for me. Is like for me, that's always the one thing that's always mildly annoyed me about some of these Nintendo games because you go, oh, that's great, but you cannot get it anywhere else other than buying a Nintendo Switch, and is that sunk cost of getting a new system for fair enough, the Switch isn't that expensive compared to what you think about what the PS5 and Xbox is going for,
Or even PCs.
and you think or new PCs, but at the same time though, is that you get a lot more variety in games on those consoles.
Yeah,
And you get
no,
them
the
lots to go
You
Switch.
with.
do.
And for me, it's always been that kind of thing. It's like it's always held me back because one of the main features is like, oh, you can take it anywhere, but then at the same time, you could take it anywhere, which means it's a problem. It means it becomes
Yeah,
detrimental to the system. Like to be fair, and that's the kind of games that have come out for the Switch are actually really based on that. And I think they've done a good job of maximizing that potential.
The
But at the
battery
same
life is
time,
poo-poo platter.
you could just go,
It is
if I can
poo-poo.
play it on the Switch, why can't I play it on my phone?
look. Here's the thing.
Interesting.
I understand why Farouk and you don't pick up Switches because you're playing Nintendo consoles for their exclusives because third party support. For the most part, if you get a third party game on the Switch, you're kind of hindering yourself because, as you said, it's less powerful. So there's been many games, including The Witcher 3, that don't run as well on Switch. So you're gonna have to play it for the exclusives. I have a Switch personally. I'm very happy I purchased one. There's a lot of great games on there, especially in 2021. But I understand why you wouldn't be, just because, like Farouk, he's not into Nintendo's exclusives. If you're not into Nintendo's exclusives, there's no reason for you to
It's got
purchase the
nothing.
system.
It's got
Yeah,
It's a
nothing.
leap of faith. It's a 100% leap of faith.
yeah. Whereas, like as you said, you have more options on other systems for third-party titles, specifically. So yeah, why would you get the third-party games that do come to Switch when they just run worse?
So,
You're actively
ZRift,
hindering your enjoyment.
anything to add?
Sorry, you was asking me if I had anything to add.
Yeah,
I did indeed ask you
Yeah.
that. Yes.
I personally don't like. I love the Switch because, again, yeah, it is a Nintendo product. I think Nintendo are able to sort of tailor make their games to the system, and I think that's one of the things that they take good advantage of, is that because
yeah,
it's a system, they have
because
that quality
that is
control.
exactly. I think that's one of my opening points. Is that is one of the big things about the Switch that Nintendo have done really well with that.
yeah. They know their fans as well.
And
That's something
think-
that I'd
I
like
think-
to add, actually.
I-
So, the Nintendo Switch has a terrible battery life. Its battery life is poo-poo platter. It really is just awful.
Yeah,
But,
it's
like,
awful. It's
every
terrible.
Nintendo Switch game is tailored to that. So, when I was playing Three Houses, my average one day shift would be a 7-hour Fire Emblem Three Houses shift. But every hour, it would constantly give me an opportunity to save. So it'd be like, you've completed this mission, you've completed this auxiliary mission, would you like to save? And because it constantly gave me opportunities to save, I was like, yeah, I don't mind if the battery life is so poor, because I'll never lose my progress, because it's constantly helping me out, even though I would
Yeah.
prefer it if they just sorted out the battery life.
Switch
help that out
games. Switch
instead,
games
come
are
on.
designed. Yeah, I get what you're getting at. Switch games are designed
Mhm.
more for pick up and play rather than
another
longer
thing
sessions.
Another thing that I wanted to add was, because as Hero was mentioning, you'd rather play third party on other systems. For me personally, I wouldn't mind giving up the high fidelity of other consoles if it meant being able to play on my Switch portable, because pre the COVID era,
I may have to support you on this, ZRift.
pre the COVID era, I used to like not travel a lot, but I used to play mostly on the Switch in handheld, or just like a quick sort of logging it onto the dock and then playing it at home for a quick bit. But I would rather be able to play that game portable, like things like Ace Attorney, play the game portable, carry it with me, and like, be like, oh yeah, no, I got 15 minutes, I can put in a quick match here and there, even if it is a third party game. And yeah, you might lose a bit of quality to 720p, but I personally didn't mind that. If I found enjoyment in the game, if I'm still able to play the game, maybe, I don't know, 30 frames are set and it's 720p set, then what more do you need? But then again, I wasn't someone that was raised with high-end PCs and computers. I don't really play the games for the graphical intensity and stuff. I play it more for the game element of it. I want to play that game specifically. That's why I play it.
That's valid. I think that,
Yeah.
like, I can see why you think that. I think that, like, because I didn't play on high end PCs in general either, but I do think there is at least a minimum standard we should expect from the game industry in 2021. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's hard to gauge that one, I would say.
I think, personally, I think it really depends on what you play, because there are some games, like you think about your Firewatch, that they are 100% built on looking good all the time.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of time in the game with great visuals and basically a radio show, which is a very good radio show. I'm not gonna. You can debate whether it's a walking simulator as a game or not, but I still got really invested in it and I like the story. But at the same time, though, it's very reliant on the visuals. Whereas you can easily imagine, I think, like games like going back to Celeste, it's a great game that doesn't really need to be high graphical. And
No.
So we're talking
really
about
dependent on the game.
So we're talking about good games we played, games that we've seen that haven't been executed that well. So what would be the best game that you guys have ever played? So irrespective of console, irrespective of time, if you had to pick one game to be the best game that you've ever played, the one game that you played and you either had no faults with or you found very minor faults that you easily ignored, because the game was
High
just
order.
the best thing you'd ever played?
That's a tall order to put on.
Should we go in some kind of order? I got an answer.
Let's start with
Okay,
Farouk.
then Nero, go ahead.
Let's start with Farouk.
Oh, yeah, sure. None.
My
Mix
favorite
it
game
up.
of all time that I think is actually perfect is Metal Gear Solid 2. That to me is the closest gaming as a thing has come to perfection.
You're right there, mate.
Is
He's
someone having a
dying.
fire alarm?
He's,
your
he's
alarm is
dying.
you're wrong.
He needs a
I think somebody's
defibrillator.
somebody has an issue with my opinion.
Jason Mars, get the defibrillator.
You're wrong.
If there was some kind of, because we have museums dedicated to the most iconic films of all time and stuff like that. If there ever was a video game equivalent, I think it would be an actual insult if Metal Gear Solid 2 wasn't in there, because not only do I think the story's perfect, for 2001, that game is super innovative. It still looks good to this day. It plays at a smooth 60, which a lot of games nowadays can't even manage. Its story and its themes are so deep, still apply to the modern day, apply more to 2021 than to 1999 when the game script was written. I'm sure a lot of that wasn't planned, by the way. I'm sure a lot of it was coincidence, but I take what I get here.
So who wants to go next?
Just to finish on that. I just like, for me, I've never had an experience I've had with that game. So I'm going to say Metal Gear Solid 2 is my favorite game of all time for that reason.
Okay, so I'm really struggling because I'm going through all the games I've played. I've just got my stream page up and seen them all and played the most. It's interesting. The game I played the most is not the one I would say is the best.
Same.
I think there are 3 games I would kind of put, and they're all kind of puzzle games. I really love the Talos Principle. I absolutely love the puzzles, and I love its constant, like, the kind of conversation going on behind it that you can, and also how you can choose to ignore the kind of religious aspects and all that kind of stuff, and you can just play it for the puzzles, and it still be a very good game. It's not really dependent on you understanding the story, although it does kind of grab it in a little bit hard too many times. Portal 2, I think when I first picked it up, I had no idea what I was getting into, and I love it and love the humor. But for the best game, I absolutely loved The Return of the Obra Dinn. I can't tell you, like, one, just that I can only play it once. It's one of those games you can only play it once and you have to experience it. But I remember going through it and going, I actually felt like really good detective game. It's a really good detective game that does detective work well, like, depending on, like even like compared to the Sherlock Holmes games, because they don't give you any. It gives you complete open ended what you could choose as the answers. So it made you actually feel like you're doing a lot of deducting going on, and by the time you get to the end of the game, it's like you felt the real accomplishment of actually being a detective. And I don't think that kind of game has ever really happened, because Portal 2 and Obra and Talos Principle has those kind of pre-prescribed solutions, whereas on the Obra Dinn they kind of let you say what you think happened a little bit more, like within your scope of what your personality is. So it's like, yeah, it's great. I thought it was a really good game.
Next at cashier number 5, please. No one wants to go next?
I mean, I'd also like to add, I think Portal 2 comes close to perfection as well.
Farouk, would you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll happily go next. So mine are, I have one, like, if you ask me more like a more generic answer, I would say it's Red Dead Redemption 2, personally, because
Good shout.
Okay.
I haven't played a lot. I mean, I would say in comparison to the rest of us here, I'm not a massive. Well, I mean, I guess I am, but
Gamer.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not a massive gamer, but at the same time, I am. But is that weird? Like, I don't play a lot of story-based games. So, in terms of more generic answers, I would go for Red Dead Redemption 2. But
Good shout.
if you want my more closer to home answers, I would say it's Little Big
let's
Planet
go for
1.
closer to home answers.
Little Big Planet 1.
Little Big Planet,
Little Big Planet 1, I love
one
that
of my
game.
favorite
I love that
games. It was such a good game. I loved it so much. I loved the creativity, and I loved the campaign. In hindsight, wasn't as amazing, but when I was playing it, it was just like really good. It was just like
The
really
campaign
fun.
was non-existent, really.
No, but like that,
Yeah.
the creative tools in Little Big Planet 1
Mm,
are still great to this day.
Yeah.
Like people have made some amazing stuff in Little Big Planet 1, and it only got improved in the sequels.
I mean, well, in 2 it felt the best. I recently played 3 because I have it on the PS now, but 3 is not as
Interesting.
good, I would say,
Okay,
personally, but 2
yeah,
was certainly the
That's kind
pinnacle
of
point.
upsetting.
Yeah,
yeah.
it got taken over by a different company. But if you want my most the one that's also very close to my heart, it's also Gary's mod.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I feel
Again,
like Ruben's perfect game is like a developer's toolbox.
basically,
well, to be fair, Gary's mod has like so many games within it
it's
because of
Yeah.
the community aspect of it.
like the thing I've realized that I like about video games is when people experiment. Hence why I respect Nintendo, but I don't necessarily play their games, is because
Yeah, they don't do
they're
Align
that.
with
excellent
their games,
quality.
yeah.
They're very good. They're very well cleaned, but I like the
Yeah.
really experimental, weird stuff. So actually, do you know what? There is one game I really thoroughly enjoyed for story, purely story-wise, which was Stanley Parable.
Just this one, and then I'll go next.
Stanley Parable's good.
Uh,
Like I feel like at some point we should just like make lists or something because there's like too many I want to
think
talk
if I
about.
So
about
let me
forever, but
let
yeah,
me go
fine.
next then, briefly. So I'd say the best game that I've ever played, no matter what time of my life I was in, would be Super Mario Odyssey. So it didn't come out that long ago, but like it was one game where I played it and everything looked amazing, everything felt amazing. The game, despite not being difficult, could be challenging if you wanted it to, so it entertained every mood that I was possibly in. If I wanted a challenge, I could easily do extra quests, explore new lands, new cities, new towns, no problem, and give myself a challenge. But if I wanted an easy victory after a crappy day, I could also turn to Odyssey and it would have the same effect. And the game, for me, it made me feel so good that I could never play it again. Because I always feel like if I ever played Odyssey again, I'd just tarnish that experience or those memories that I had the first time that I played it. And like, also, I mean, I did sport a bit of a chub for Odyssey, so I mean, I don't think that many
Here's a
games have
question:
that
did you
effect.
play the original Assassin's Creed?
I did, yes, but I preferred
That's
two.
really interesting.
Two's better.
I prefer
Oh yeah,
two.
like I prefer Brotherhood mainly because it's just
Ooh.
it's mainly because I liked the story better in Brotherhood, and I felt like
Ooh.
it was just like I mean, it's the same system as an Assassin's Creed 2.
Well,
It's
it should
just
be, yeah.
the point is they're both better than one. One's I think by
Oh my
today's
God.
by today's
One
standards,
is
one's horrible.
garbage.
Yeah, one's
Unplayable,
terrible.
almost.
Oh
How
my
many
God.
Assassin's
I
Creeds
played that
are there?
again after I played that before I played Revelations, and I was like,
After-
oh
after-
my God.
Off the top of my head, I could name you. So there's 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations. I think came after, and then 3, and then 4, and
There's
then
Black Flag.
Syndicate.
That's a great game.
Syndicate, and then oh god, Unity.
Yeah, Unity, I think sounds
Unity
familiar.
Syndicate. Because
Unity
Syndicate is the last of what you would call the traditional Assassin's Creed. And then they went back to the kind of they really just completely changed the game in
And
terms
that's the
of when they
thing.
go back to Origins.
Yeah,
I honestly count the new Assassin's Creed games as something completely different compared to what
they are.
like
They are.
ZRift? ZRift, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking. So I'm kind of stuck between 3 games at the moment. So
Pick one. Let's make it easier for
I'll
our
just go
one listener. Pick
or
one.
or just go 3 and like I did.
Like name Farouk got to name 3.
I got to name
yeah,
3, so go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was the only one that stuck to me and Hazzamaxman were the only ones that stuck to 1.
because selecting a favorite game is really difficult as a human being
It is
because a lot of
difficult. It is
games have
difficult.
a lot of different meaning to you, which is why I've been stuck on the 3. Like
So which
I
3
think
did you pick?
for me, one of the games that were most important to me was, and I'm gonna go. This is gonna be out here. Not a lot of people probably would have played this, but Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was a fantastic,
me and Hazzamaxman.
fantastic game. A fighting
Sorry,
game.
that's a title?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a
Dragon
title,
Ball Z
unbelievably.
Budokai
No,
Tenkaichi 3. That's the full title.
Can you add any more words to a title? I mean, Jesus.
Favorite part.
Well,
You should
Well,
see
it's
some of
a
the Kingdom
Japanese
Hearts
fighting
games.
game.
No, my favorite.
It's a Japanese
go on,
Oh,
ZRift.
My favorite.
ZRift, go on.
My favorite.
To-
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was gonna say my favorite
Yeah, ZRift, go on.
title was that it had 10, but then 3.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, Kingdom Hearts 3, Shadow Realm 2. It's like when you have two numbers in the title, it already sounds like a good game.
When you
Yeah,
have two numbers in the title, that's when you know to put the game down.
ZRift,
to me
you wanna
as a
keep going?
fighting game, that like I could put so many hours into that, and even when I had
Same.
friends come over and play that game multiplayer, the amount of just raw energy you would have just like freaking going at the analog sticks during a
Yeah.
beam clash, it was fantastic. It was like an epitome of childhoodness, getting together with your friends and having a good time playing a fighting game of a show that you loved. That's like a very important game to me in terms of fighting and in terms of like childhood.
Mm.
Now, the second game
Mm.
that I was going to pick was GTA San Andreas.
Okay,
Because
good.
I have
I'm
put
glad you didn't
yeah.
say 4.
way, I have put way too much blood, sweat, and tears for me to ignore that game and the impact it's had on my life.
It is the best GTA
playing it.
game.
I started playing it as a meme when I was in holiday in France and visiting some family friends, and it's stuck with me ever since. Everything you can do in that game, the story, just everything about that game has had an impact in my life to some degree.
No,
music
yeah.
and everything.
The
It's
third
just-
one?
yeah.
No, what's your third option?
And the third option that I had was that this is more of a personal option is Super Mario 64, because that game
Another good game.
to me it was a time when like I have African parents, so playing video games with them is not easy. Like, but I could sit down for hours on end with my mom and play Super Mario 64, and she would be like, "You need to do this, get that star." She'd be egging me on to do stuff because I'm not afraid to admit it. I was scared of doing a little the odd bits here and there in Super Mario 64. But my mom would always be pushing me and saying, "No, just do it. Why are you scared? Why are you doing that?" And that game has a very important place in my heart. So I'd say, yeah, it's between those 3 games. But if I had to pick one, it will probably be GTA San Andreas.
I noticed your
Interesting.
options, your choices are very nostalgic fueled, maybe.
Yeah, I don't feel like, I mean, as I've grown older, a lot of the video games that I've played now, they can't measure up to, or in my personal opinion, they can't measure up to the quality and enjoyment that I got out of them as a child. Now,
I
as an
mean,
adult,
I will be kind of a boomer and agree that I do think that I have more of a soft heart for specifically for me, it's like the PS2 era of gaming.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I do think nostalgia. I
think
do think nostalgia is an
that's-
important element in gaming. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of modern games, you can easily play it and it can pass and you can forget about it. Kind of like fast food. Like, you enjoy it for like 20, 30 minutes, but then you just kind of forget about it. Like, whatever. You're like, I had a McDonald's, no big deal. Nothing particularly amazing about it. But I feel like with older games, you can kind of. With older games, they tend to linger. They have a longer lasting impact.
I think I'm gonna counteract that because I think we're looking
for
at
it.
through these games through rose-tinted glasses, and I think we're in a particular era where, like, we're thinking
Can't
about
disagree.
those games, the games that we played, that we are looking at those games with high replay value. I think the market is now so much more competitive and has significantly changed. So things that might stick with us now are, like, for example, there's like some moments. Like, for example, I can't tell you how much. Like, I play. Okay, one of the games I forgot to mention was Celeste, but that's but I'm playing that game and I think it has a great impact on me more than probably some other games I played in the past. But that's now. But you can't understand the impact a game has had on you until time has gone by. We can't, like, for example, we're looking back and going, "Oh, this game has such a major influence on what games I play." And I look back and go, I could say the same thing about Rome Total War. I have so many memories of playing Rome Total War, but I won't say it's one of the best games I've ever played. And I think that's the thing, is like, we can easily look back and go, that's where I got that love of playing those kind of games.
Here's the thing. I get what you're getting. I get what you're getting on rose tinted thing, but I'm not like that as a person, and I don't, and you can say, "Oh, you're being nostalgic." I'm not like that at all. If I think something's shit, it's shit, regardless of age. Like, I'm not like that as a person. I think gaming as a whole used to take more risks than it did now. Used to be more innovative than it is now,
Yeah.
and used to focus on the gameplay as a mechanic than it did now, where a lot of it is going more into the simulation era. And I'm specifically talking about the big budget AAA stuff. I'm not talking about the indie games. Indie games are fine now. I'm just
Let me add
saying
something
that
to
as
Hero's point.
games as like fun games, as in like that arcadey nature of them, the actual, oh, I want to play the game for fun. Like you brought Celeste up. Celeste would be more likely to be made by a big budget company back in the 2000s or 90s
Oh yeah,
than it
but
would in 2010.
do you think that's
That's
now the
like, you
elements of
can't.
how big gaming has become, and that there's that the amount of risk
Yeah, no,
that those big
gaming,
companies now have?
yeah, that's the thing. Gaming has become more mainstream, and as a result, you can't take as many risks, because back in the day, gaming was more niche. You can take risks. Who cares if people don't like it, right?
Yeah.
Now they want to get their units out. I'm not saying that one's worse or the other or whatever, but I will say innovation is definitely way less. I love to death stuff like Witcher 3 and Skyrim. They're not innovative though. They're perfections of already existing stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Let
That's
me
what I get.
mention something briefly. I mean, even if there is a degree of subjectivity when you're looking into older games potentially being better than newer games, so what? Nostalgia is a big part of the gaming experience, and I know certainly, I know certainly with Nintendo that one of their most successful streams of games have been remasters or collections or new editions of old already existing games. So about a month ago, I got the All Stars collection, so replaying Galaxy, 64, and Sunshine, and it was great. It was an amazing game. It's not innovative, it's not brand new, it's not trailblazing, it's nothing. But it was still a great game to play because it was three games that I looked on positively, that I enjoyed, and even though I'm not a nostalgic guy, three great games
Can I just say
on a new
something like
system,
stupid?
then yeah.
Can I just say something stupid? Because I
Go
just
ahead.
I just remembered it and it put a massive grin on my face.
Go ahead, ZRift.
Can we just talk about how much of a banging game Nintendogs was? Nintendogs banged so
Nintendogs,
hard.
yes!
It was such a good game.
I had the green one. I don't know what the differences
Wait,
were. I think it was
what game are
Chihuahua.
you saying? What game are you saying is good?
Nintendogs.
I'm indifferent to that kind of
That
stuff.
Yeah, of
game
course you would
was
be.
such a fantastic like.
It was so much fun.
I think that game gets boring really quick.
Oh well, each to their own.
It
I found so much
can,
enjoyment. Like,
but it was
it
great.
the first game I got with my DS, and I put so much energy and time into that. I still, if they released a Nintendogs for the Switch, I would get it.
For the Switch.
Okay, you know they've released like 10 Nintendo
No, I mean
games
like
since the original one came out, right?
not like a bootleg looking one. I mean like a proper Nintendogs, proper Nintendog sequel.
An
Not
officially
Nintendogs and
licensed
cats. I mean
legit
Nintendo.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I want to add to Hazzamaxman's point when he's talking about nostalgia and the innovation and thing. I will say this: you don't need a game to be innovative to be good. That's not the point I was making. Here's the thing:
No,
controversial
I agree.
controversial opinion alert. Half-Life
Hot
2 is
take.
considered one of the
Woo!
Half-Life 2 is considered one of the most innovative games of all time, right? I think that game sucks. I think that game's terrible.
Overrated. I would agree.
Overrated.
Hero.
Oh yeah,
You wanna know-
that's not controversial here, man. I
Farouk?
absolutely. You can
Anything
see.
to add?
You want to know
can
why I
absolutely 100% see
prioritize
all the
why that
different-
is? Because yeah.
You can see where all the innovations come from and what everyone's took influence from it. But my only thing I will say is I didn't play at launch. I played other fighting shooter games afterwards. Then went to play that, and that's probably why I've gone. What is this game? I didn't get the same experience that probably loads of other people did when they picked it up and went, "Oh my god, this is a game changer."
That's why, something like Witcher 3, or I know it's a different genre, but okay, let's say something like Deus Ex, the new one. Yeah, it's not as innovative, right? But it plays a hell of a lot better than fucking Half-Life 2 did. So I'd rather play Deus Ex because Deus Ex is fun.
Yeah.
Doom is not innovative at
Yeah.
all. Amazing game. 9 out of 10 game for me. Like, here's the thing as well. You know what? In a way, Doom is kind of innovative in the sense that it's gone back to why first-person shooters were fun since they've been mundane for like
Yeah. Because cover
10
shooters
years.
now, instead of it just being an arena shooter, it's like
exactly.
It's changed the formula a little bit, like gone back to change it in a weird way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think
exactly. But
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say the mindset. The reason I like Doom so much is because it feels like an old school game mindset. That's kind of why I like it. It prioritizes that gameplay and flow first before, you need to get hit, get behind cover wall until the ring goes away.
Because I think that comes from that realism that started eking into the game genre.
Yeah. No.
So I just had a thought. We've been talking about like great games we've played, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what is the best worst? What is the best worst game that you've played? A game that's so bad that you've loved it, so terrible, so awful and disgusting. You're like, I have to keep playing it. I'm a trash human being. Please give me more trash.
Great question.
Thank you.
I could spend. That's fucking difficult.
ZRift?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Do you want to start?
Because I don't usually stick around for like garbage.
Let's,
I mean,
let's mix up the orders. ZRift,
anyway,
some games are so garbage you kind of want.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, but then there's sometimes I could say that about a lot of Telltale games. Like sometimes you're just invested in the story and you're like, this is just bullshit, boring.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's kind of like what do we consider a garbage game? Do we consider
stuff like if it works for its genre, like a Telltale game, is that considered garbage? Because the gameplay of Telltale games are garbage. So, like, would you consider that a garbage game?
I mean, that's the thing though. Like the Walking Dead games series of Telltale games, I still think are like the banner of those games. I still think it works for that very same. I think it works in that one. No, but also I think the very nature of its story works for those kind of choice-based ideas. But when they started to go out into like Batman and other stuff, you're just like, like you start playing and you just go, this is garbage.
Yeah. Especially when
it's not like
ZRift,
which worked way back.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think of a horrible game, but the thing is, I'm struggling because I wouldn't buy a game that I tend to look at games, like watch let's plays of it online before I actually invest money into it.
Yeah.
So if there's a game I don't like the look of, I don't buy it. But the closest thing I can think about is probably like a visual novel when I was really young. It's like a really horrible visual novel called Sayo no Yuta or something. It freaked me out as a kid about this girl and this really, I don't remember what the hell. It just gave me nightmares as a child.
That's what it was about. It was about girls.
No, it was about this
clickbait title.
It was about this guy who lived in a world where everything was horrible apart from this one angelic looking girl, and I think it was like an H novel or something. It was really freaking weird, and like I didn't like it at all. But I kept on reading because I wanted to see where the story was going. Like, is he gonna die in the end? But
now, guys, can I go next?
I went to an icky game.
Can I go next? Because my trash game is going to incite a lot of conversation. Can I go next?
Go for it.
So, when I was a kid, I fell into this horrible trap of buying every game that was based off a TV show or a movie I liked.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids who believed a good TV show or a good movie had to be a good game. And one of my favorite trash games of all time, Power Rangers SPD, the Game Boy Advance game. It was a killer game, right? It was literally Power Rangers, the TV show, but you got to play as the Power Rangers, and for different missions, you played as different ones of the Power Rangers. And it was just like, if I look at that game now, I'm literally just playing the TV series. So why would I want that in a game? But back then, I'm like, Power Rangers, more Power Rangers. Yeah, great.
The thing is, I kind of escape those kind of trashy Like the closest thing I could think of was The Incredibles, but that's actually a fairly decent game. So it's
It was
not.
actually
Yeah, I know. I fell in the trap of buying products based
Superman
off.
64.
None of us are that old.
Yeah.
What?
None of us are that old,
Yikes.
dude.
Superman 64. Horrible game.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
saying
I've
none of us were that
honestly,
old to play it.
I've never played that game. I don't even know
Yeah,
what console that's on.
I remember
Oh.
I remember it being advertised. I remember
What?
seeing it.
yeah,
His-
I mean,
honestly,
Hero?
if you want to think of games that I genuinely think are awful, but I get nothing but entertainment from, I think all of David Cage's games come under that list.
Oh my god!
wow.
Give us an example. Give us an example for the viewers out there.
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain is.
Oh my
I
god,
love
Rain's-
Heavy
Heavy
Rain.
I like it's a good game.
Oh.
Heavy Rain's story is a mess. Everything about that game is a mess, but you can't deny it's not a very entertaining one with likable characters. Like,
Can I quickly ask?
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Can I
Yeah,
quickly
yeah.
ask? Is
If you
Heavy
when you
Rain?
first play it through and you just go
Yeah.
at it without thinking
Your-
about it,
your
it's
fir- yeah.
really entertaining.
your first
Can
playthrough of Heavy Rain is amazing. Like, the more
Can
you
I
think
quickly
about it, the more
ask?
years you give it, you're like, man, Heavy Rain is silly.
Is Heavy
That
Rain?
game.
Is Heavy Rain the game where one of the characters just keeps yelling, "Jason,
Yeah.
Jason"?
yeah, that's what our friend
Jesus,
Jason
I wonder
Barton
where
is
this
named after.
character's name came from.
But look, I will pick Heavy Rain over Beyond Two Souls any day.
Yeah.
Beyond
Oh
Two
my
Souls
god!
is-
Beyond Two
Souls
Souls is
is
just
no, okay.
bonkers.
Of the four narrative games that David Cage made in that style, Beyond Two Souls is actually just it's boring. It's not even
Mhm.
like entertaining.
Yeah.
Like Fahrenheit 451 just goes off the fucking deep end.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
you think,
what was that?
you think
Yeah,
Fahrenheit 45? Is it 451? It's something like the.
yeah.
No,
I
hang
know what
on.
you're talking about. Yeah,
Oh, no, it's just Fahrenheit. Sorry, it's just Fahrenheit. It's Indigo Prophecy, depending which country you're in.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I
that game,
definitely
I
know
remember
about these
playing,
games.
And
yeah,
then suddenly,
totally, yeah.
like you think it's
I
it's
agree.
grounded in reality, and then someone's like, now he has superpowers. He's now Superman. Wait,
Ooh.
what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that game, the beginning of that game and the end of that are like two different beasts.
Games.
But I will say this:
Mm.
Fahrenheit has one of my favorite starts to a video game ever. Like,
Oh
the
my
first 10
god, it really
Yeah.
gets you in. Like you're
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
just seeing him kill someone. I mean, it's opening bits, so it's not really spoilers.
Yeah,
But and then you're like,
Yeah,
you're,
but does
you're
it-
acting this character trying to avoid the police, and you're like, oh, that's really clever. Like you're put in a situation where now you're acting rational, whereas before you weren't, and now you have to get yourself out of it.
Yeah,
And you
but
know what,
serious question: is the
Go on.
intro to that game as good as the intro to the Hannah Montana Nintendo DS game? Just saying.
well, we can't compare that. We can't
What?
compare the perfection of that.
What have you been smoking, my guy? You can't make that Hannah Montana.
We can't compare. Look,
What can I say?
we get it. Hannah Montana, when it came out, yes, it's one of the best games ever. Can we get over it? We can't compare everything to it. That's the gold
Oh,
standard.
come on!
We know
Come
that
on.
it was snubbed
If you-
the game of the
that's-
year, but you
that's
can't
like
keep bringing that
saying-
up.
That's like saying
What?
Garden of Eden, the perfect apple. Yeah, who cares? Let's disregard it. Come on,
The most
it's the
weird.
game of all games.
If we
The
compare
worst
every game
game-
to it, it's just unfair.
Yeah.
Compared to games, oh no, oh no.
Can you imagine someone coming in here right now? I'm going, are they fucking serious?
It's the best of both
You're
worlds.
better off comparing Harry
With a
Potter
limo
books
out
to
front.
Ready Steady Cook at this point.
Oh my god!
Actually, Ruben just reminded me. I used to play the Harry Potter game.
Farouk
Harry
is
Potter
reminding me.
game. Oh my
Same.
god, was it
Who
Harry
can
Potter?
mention
Harry
them?
Potter one, first two, no, actually, first three games were actually really good. I seem to remember.
I mean, yeah.
They're basic platformers, but also it was like it really captured the game, like and how like it felt to be a wizard. It was like really good.
Mm.
And then I think from 4 onwards, they're like, oh yeah, you're just playing the movie now, and it's like, that's
Can
not
we
what I-
talk about the Harry Potter movies for a second?
I can't
Sure,
say
you got
anything
something-
about
I
it.
mean, it's the
can't
best
say
segue you're
anything.
gonna get.
Yeah.
I
mean,
can't say
sure,
anything
you
about
got-
it.
you
I was just
something
gonna
to
say.
I was going to mention
I've
them as
only
a
I was
game.
just gonna
one
say,
movie.
It's
I
actually
can't
good,
even
but
about
so
it.
yeah, go for
I
it.
was all I was gonna say was Harry Potter movies. How did they end so badly? They started so well and ended
Ooh.
so badly. You could literally split the
Ooh.
Harry Potter film franchise into 2 different segments. Harry Potter when Harry Potter was cool, and then Harry Potter. No, No, just tuck it under the carpet.
I know
Just
what you
like,
mean.
no.
Nah,
You're talking.
I'm.
I know
Oh,
what you're
I think,
saying.
I think
that-
what he's getting at. Yeah, I think what he's getting at is that the earlier films were better than the later ones. I think
Yeah.
that's
Oh
Exactly.
yeah, but they're also
Exactly.
the books are very different from the beginning to end. They are
True.
literally
Yeah.
the whole point is that the first two films are supposed to be very light-hearted and whimsical, very kind of child-based, and then by the end you're dealing with quite actually complex themes about immortality.
Yeah.
And that for
I'm gonna-
me is why I think that's what I think the book series is a great book series
Absolutely.
to grow up with.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think
definitely.
I was very lucky that literally I grew up at the very, very good timing when the books were released. But then at the same time, the films have to do that. It's a fucking mess because you're talking about tonal shifts from film to film, and how you literally got up until probably maybe Goblet of Fire, or not even Goblet of Fire. Prison of Azkaban turns into a dark movie,
Mhm.
Oh,
and
that
then
was
it's
a
like,
great movie.
which kind of defeats the point of the book because it's supposed to still be semi light-hearted, but
Yeah.
because the main story is
Yeah,
about
no,
guys
yeah.
escaping, you can't get away with it.
Mm.
Yeah, Prisoner
And
of
I think
Azkaban, the beginning of the book starts off a lot differently than it ends in terms of tone.
Yeah.
It's like a bridge, I think,
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
like that light-hearted one to that darker one.
But then I do think though I don't dislike the last couple of movies because there's a lot they have
No.
to choose from.
I do.
You
But-
like the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2? Oh,
Yeah, they're
No,
horrible.
they're not great. But how else are you going to end the series? It's like it's the same question I have with like Game of Thrones. It's like it was always going to end badly because there is no way you can finish off. Like if you got to season 5 and said, "Oh yeah, this is how it's going to end," I'd be like, "I'm not surprised," because it's
People
literally
don't like, people don't like safe, you can see them coming endings, but stuff like book series, especially
Yeah.
with long narratives, they tend to end in kind of like that kind of safe-ish manner because it's kind of like, if you want a like a feel-good ending, kind of like Harry Potter, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, we did what we did, and we defeated. What do you think it was going to end with? Harry Potter versus Voldemort. That being said, movies-wise, I am going to agree with Hazzamaxman. I think those later films really go down in quality, and my personal reason for that is a lot of people have issues with the first two films being kind of too close to the book, but I like that they focus on world building and they focus on the wizardy world, because the wizard world is the most interesting
that
thing
was the
about Harry Potter.
USP.
And once they
the
stopped
USP.
focusing on that, and once they stopped focusing on that, and they
But that's the hard part.
focusing on I mean, I hate to bring up the complaint everyone else does. I hate to bring up the complaint everyone else does, but the romance drags that
Oh,
series
here we
down
go.
Yeah,
to
I
the
agree.
dirt.
It started off as
but
building,
God.
and but then became young adult romance stuff, and it was like,
and then it became an more adult thing later on, and they kind of put the romance. But that's the thing though. That is you growing up with the books, and you overanalyze the importance of your like high school relationships or friendships and stuff like that. Like, I think the books do a good
ZRift,
job of managing it.
after
The
Jason.
problem is they're so important in the books that you can't just disregard them in the films.
Yeah,
And it definitely leaves the film in you're stuck between a rock and a hard place for those last 3 films. You got the 3 longest books, you got the most to adapt. The only reason I didn't mind Deathly Hallows Part 2. I hated Part 1, but that's just because Part 1 is just literally just camping, and they had to do that bit to do 2. I think if you had split it into put into one film, it would have been very difficult, and stuff got lost.
Yeah,
ZRift,
I
what
think
were you going to say?
I think it's one of the few times that I actually
Sure.
actually it's okay to split the films up.
yeah, I know, I agree with you. It's hard to adapt all that. But
Same.
I think the problem is with it is that it could have had. I think it should have at least keep some of the world building aspect, but I think that's how the books as well went as well. It started off introducing you to all these concepts and ideas, which is all quite whimsical and quite interesting, but they lose that focus towards like from a certain point onwards. So like 3 was the last time you saw new concepts, whereas in like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it was like the focus changed. I understand it's quite hard to balance both, but I think when you start off with world building in this whimsical world, to then lose that kind of is why it loses its steam. I guess that's just an opinion. But
I mean,
it does
also
change.
doesn't.
And I think
I was just going to say it also doesn't help that 6 out of the 7 books are set 99% of the time just in Hogwarts, and I could see like there's this big wizardy world, but you're also not exploring most of it. So like, what's the point?
but also at the same time, the whole story changes after 4.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
True.
that, and
So
I think
ZRift, what were you gonna say? You were gonna say something?
I'm
ZRift.
like I've from an outsider because I've never watched or read the Harry Potter books, and I've only watched one film.
Wow.
And Harry Potter didn't interest me as a child, and it
I
was
didn't know
banned.
any of you existed.
It was banned in my household because witchcraft ain't okay.
Shocker.
But from an outside, just listening in on what you guys are saying, to me it seems like the thing here was that the books were essentially the films were trying to do it more grown up. They were trying to grow up. They were trying to like it's kind of like how we are as teenagers. When you're a teenager, you start to focus on interpersonal relationships. You start to focus on boyfriend girlfriend romances and all that. That becomes the sort of key thing when you're a
Unfortunately,
teenager.
true.
It becomes that sort of like, you being in a relationship with someone is a status thing. And then when you grow up, of course, when you grow up in a fantasy world, when you're a child, you will focus on the world building because you're shown this amazing sort of atmosphere and world around you. But now that you've gotten a bit more used to the essentials, like, the world of Hogwarts, and you grow up a bit more, well, then you're going to face off against more adult themes, more sort of thing. I mean, I don't know, because I haven't watched the films and I haven't read the books, but it feels like, from what I'm hearing from you guys, it feels like you guys feel like the movies, the films were bad because it didn't retain that whimsical element of it. So it feels
no,
like
the books don't do that either.
yeah.
I think.
So-
I think the problem is that the movie was that there's too much for the movie to adapt properly and to do the book justice. Which then leaves you left with basically the core things from each book, which ends up being stuff that people don't generally like as much from it. It's like you miss out a lot of the stuff, like, oh yeah, there's like you don't get that kind of slow build up over time of like Hermione and Ron's relationship going on like for nearly 2-3 books, which is lost in the films because you've actually had a decent amount of time before anything happens. And in the last 2 films, it's like it's literally hinted at in one scene where it literally basically hammers you over the head with it, and you're like, oh, okay. Whereas in the books, there's that nice, because they're stuck with just doing the key concepts, you miss the kind of slow build up of certain aspects that you didn't realize were going to be important.
Yeah, okay, I get it now more. I understand it a bit more now. But yeah, from the outside of it, it seemed like there was like the books were trying to grow up, and I think there might have been a bit of a dissonance between how the movie adapted the books trying to grow up and how the viewers saw growing up, essentially. But yeah, okay, thanks for explaining that for me.
So I can't explain how I had this thought in my head, but we've been talking about Harry Potter, and it suddenly started making me think of Roald Dahl books and Horrid Henry books, because I remember these 3 books dominated my reading in childhood, and I didn't read that much, so to get me to read was a bit of an achievement, because I was always of the attitude as a child that books are just TV where you have to do the work. It's written TV, and who wants that? So what I was wondering was, what books did you guys read in your childhood? What were your favorite childhood books?
Oh boy,
Harry Potter. Damn it.
Harry Potter. Yeah, like Prisoner of Azkaban is still one of my favorite books.
I had the Alex Rider series. That's quite good.
Oh yeah.
I never really read that.
No, but here's a question that suddenly popped into my head, because I know the Alex Rider series has now been made into a TV show. Do you think today, if someone was going to suggest bringing to like Harry Potter to like to the screen, do you think now they would have more confidence in making it a TV show rather than a film?
They wouldn't. I don't think they'd go with a reboot film series.
Yeah,
I don't think that.
No, but if you're talking about from scratch, like literally, there's no films. The films don't exist. if someone came up to the producer and said, "We're going to adapt these books," do you think it'd be a TV show or a film?
TV show.
In the modern day, it'd be a
let me
TV
say
show.
this. Let me say
Yeah.
this.
ZRift,
It probably
what were you
wouldn't
gonna
get
say?
adapted. It probably wouldn't get adapted today because J.K. Rowling would get cancelled immediately. And two, if it was going to be adapted, it would probably be a Netflix show.
Yeah. I agree on that.
Oh, so be a Netflix
I'd probably
show.
say, you know what? I'd probably say Amazon Prime before Netflix.
Or who is it that
Ooh.
who is it that does Games of Thrones? It's HBO, right?
HBO, yeah, HBO
HBO
Max
Max
as
is
well.
the streaming thing, yeah.
They would adapt Harry Potter after they finish Game of Thrones. Is my bet.
Interesting.
Probably.
Um,
But funny enough, we've all said it'll be a TV show.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's the big thing at the moment is like streaming.
Well, there's no
services and
cinema.
stuff.
Where are you going to go to cinema right now? Are you?
You could,
Well, no,
yeah.
but
Well,
I think that when people have learned that when dealing with books,
Wonder
you
Woman
can't just put them into
1984.
film.
Cough, cough.
Yeah. Film loses a lot of
Cinemas
depth and
cinemas were
Yeah.
actually open for that. Cinemas were
Yeah.
actually open for that film.
Also, I
Film,
think
like-
failed like book series that initially became more popular in film and kind of tailed off. Like you got The Hobbit is a good example. You got The Hunger Games kind of ended poorly because it didn't capture all the stuff. And I'm wondering if more and more people are going because they can give TV shows film like budgets now. Which to be fair, the first season of Walking Dead did, which no one else did at the time, is now standard.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think when you have with shows in comparison to films, because films like you have to condense it down into this small, digestible size, and it has to. And if you have lots and lots of the film, there's chances of it losing its focus because obviously you might have to have different directors. Films are quite big, quite bloated, whereas TV shows can be smaller, but can focus on the details that films miss. And also, and then also you can split it up. Like you can do each book as a season, and you can still get your 8 seasons or 7 seasons as it may be. But you don't have like with the Deathly Hallows as the last book where it's split into 2. You don't have that it's split into 2. They're just trying to make more money. It's like they're just doing as much as they can. So I think there's a justification there.
Yeah. Unlike The Hobbit, which is the shortest of the books, but they made it 3 parts.
For a film to be able to fit into, for a film to be able to fit into to be able to explain everything in a film, there need to be the length of a Bollywood movie, and I don't think a lot of people
stop. Not, please.
Let's just say I've had a bit of experience with Bollywood movies.
I love Bollywood movies.
Not my cup of tea.
Haven't seen one.
Finally, someone else who isn't Asian understands something so unique about Bollywood films. Like
Bollywood movies are like a joy. I mean, the thing is, they're so
Bollywood
long.
movies are like more entertaining than Hollywood movies. The good ones, not the bad ones.
My only problem with Bollywood movies is like obviously because I watch them on like a TV network, so there'll be ads in between. So you'll start a film at like 2 and it won't finish till 6. And
yeah,
be like,
6 or 7.
Length.
Yeah. But I do
now.
enjoy Bollywood movies. Tend to go like I enjoy the musical numbers. I enjoy the sort of story of it. I find it a lot more sort of interesting, and a lot more engaging than
They're a lot.
than
See,
movies.
what I've noticed is that Hollywood films are very gimmicky. So Hollywood films will focus on a book series, or a franchise, or a dystopian universe, or a sort of cool concept will dominate Hollywood films. In Bollywood films, whether we're talking about Bollywood films that were made in the 80s that my dad will just watch on endless loop, or Bollywood movies made now in 2020/2021, they all follow the same storyline. They are always to do with a complicated love story with 3 to 4 musical numbers.
A mother a family that doesn't approve of their daughter marrying some person, or their son marrying this person, or marrying into nobility, or into some kind of thing, or you. Oh, jeez!
You're not selling me that this.
You're not doing a good job here.
Yeah, you're not doing a good job at this stuff.
I think the most Bollywood thing I think I've seen, and it's probably this is like B level for Bollywood, is when you see a man come up to a truck on horseback and then suddenly see him literally drift the horse underneath it whilst he's still riding it, and then gets up at the other end. Like, I honest to God love. Like,
If you-
I really wish there was just a film of just B-list Bollywood action stuff because it
if
is
you want me
hilarious.
Bro,
to,
if you think Bollywood action movies is something, wait till you watch Nollywood action
Oh, no,
movies.
that-
That's
Oh,
on another level.
oh
That's
God.
on another- How can they shoot a man 500 bullets and
So,
the man is still
Hero-
alive, walking around like the
Hollywood
slow motion when
films
he
so
touches the bullet?
Hero,
No, look,
you
look,
said
here's the
that
thing,
me
I'm
and
sure-
ZRift failed to advertise it. You said me
Nollywood
and
films
ZRift
are
failed
good
to advertise it. If I had
Yes.
to advertise Bollywood, if I had to advertise Bollywood to you, what I'd say is that Bollywood films are a lot more story-driven and narrative than Hollywood movies. So the good Bollywood movies will lack the special effects, the sci-fi, the cool dystopian universes. They'll be set in a real-life setting. But they're a lot more character and story-driven. That's how I'd advertise it. And just to finish off the advertisement, one of the best movies I've ever seen, Bollywood, Hollywood, whatever. One of the best movies I've ever seen is called Three Idiots, a Bollywood movie, and the impact that movie had on me is that it forced me to reevaluate my life. Like, what do I value as important? Why do I make the decisions that I make? Am I looking at things too superficially? So it's the fact that Bollywood movies are very relatable to you. That's
be
how I'd advertise it.
I have heard. I have heard Three Idiots in the conversation as even one of the best films of all time. So,
Yeah, I've heard good things about it, but I always find it. You like when you say Hollywood, I assume you mean like the AAA titles that you get.
Yeah.
Which I mean it's safe, but I still think like if you go and think about, but they're not the films that get like major praise for being the best films anymore.
Yeah.
Like they're not
That's
from the big
true.
studios because the big studios talk about like, oh hey, let's see how much money we can get. Like that's what the big movies are essentially. Like we think about like we've got the Transformers or something, a book series that make the most money, but they're never the ones at the end of the year where the Academy goes, yeah, that was a good film.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
I think there is a real dissonance
But-
between what people in the public go, yeah, I'll watch that, compared to what people or what is a good film or what makes a good film. Like
Yeah.
you can't
Well,
tell
yeah,
me that
you-
Moonlight. You can't tell me that Moonlight didn't have character and stuff like that.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna have
That's
to
true.
if you
That's
want to.
true.
I mean, it depends what you're looking for. Yeah, obviously, if you go to any regular journalist site, and film journalists are fucking idiots. If you go to any of their
Yep.
sites, then it'll just be like they'll be like Avengers Endgame top 100 movies of all time.
Mm.
But if you go to like
I've
stuff
actually
like
read that
you
somewhere.
know
I
some
actually
of the
read
more
that somewhere.
indie sites, maybe they'll actually recommend you a film
Yeah.
for
This
quality.
is why there'll always be dissonance between audience goers and film reviewers, though, because film reviewers are doing what they need to do essentially to be able to ensure that they can still get, to see the film before everyone else see. I don't even know. You know what? Film critics are on another level. Whenever I'm looking for a review for a film, I don't listen to film critics. If film critics hate that film, it's probably going to be a good film.
What you
Oh, I'm
That
sorry.
easy.
I completely disagree with that.
I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily agree
I-
with that.
They've said things like
So rebuttal.
I
Rebuttal by
think
Jason.
film critics can be caught up and go on. I talk about how films and they can change their mind later. Like Citizen Kane is a good example, a film that no one liked at the
Yeah.
time, but everyone likes now. But at the same time, though, I honestly think a lot of film critics have kind of woken up to that. But there are some times I do use it. Like I don't go, oh, I'm gonna base like what film I'm gonna watch based on their Rotten Tomatoes level. I will look at it and go, okay, it's a 30. I know what kind of film it is. Like that's
Yeah.
I know that some films won't get high Rotten Tomato scores because that's just not the nature of that film. I don't expect Jackass to get a bloody
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
60%. So it's all about taking it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
But
But
I do take it like if I take a film that I haven't seen before and I know the type of film, I go, okay, I am actually going to listen to this. Just look at the percentage and just go, okay, they say it's a fairly decent film.
But as
What's
we
it
also
need to
live, we also live in such a context nowadays that political films are judged on what message they send out, like what they're
Yeah,
trying to
rather
portray. It's
than
not
the
like
actual quality. Yeah.
it's not enough.
Content,
It's not enough
yes.
to be a film, or
Oh, hey,
something
Last of Us
specific
2.
for people.
Nice for you to be here.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's the video game element of it. But like, that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why a lot of the films critics that I don't take film critic into consideration. I take actual audience opinion into consideration.
User opinion is
action,
more important.
Yeah. There's an action movie that the critics didn't like because it has a male character. Oh, but the audience love it and say, you know what? If you turn your mind off, you're gonna enjoy it. Well, then why the hell not? Let me enjoy it. I'll enjoy what I want to enjoy. There's a badass flick about I don't know, 3 girls that go around and beat up because they work underground. Oh, but it's not pushing the feminist agenda because the women are somewhat sexualized. I don't give a hat's ass. I'm going to watch the film. People are saying,
are you talking about Sucker Punch here?
Sucker Punch was enjoyable. I won't deny Sucker Punch was an enjoyable film.
I didn't think it was great.
It's crap.
I like.
I'm not saying it didn't like. It didn't like because he actually listened to the guy like Zack Snyder. He actually talks about how it's supposed to be something else. You go, yeah, but at the same time, like I do think that I don't think it helps when you have whole like directors literally come up before the film and then just go, if it doesn't do well or bombs, it's because men didn't like it.
Yeah, like
so
what was it like?
I don't
Charlie's
know
Angels.
about this film at all. So whilst you're debating this, I'm just going to throw in some throwaway catchphrases. Like, yeah, totally agree, definitely. So
films like what was the film? It was Charlie's Angels. There was a reboot that was done,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
when it didn't succeed, the director,
Totally.
I don't remember what her name was.
And she said this before it went out.
Agreed.
This is what freaks me out.
It's like, if men don't go watch this film, then it clearly shows men can't stomp women who kick badass women in movies. Like, no, that's not it. Shut up. That's not it.
Sorry, Wonder Woman 1984 or something.
Exactly. Alien.
Oh my god!
Someone tried to advertise Suicide Squad to me the same way. Someone said to me, like, Suicide Squad, progressive movie, like female lead, and like the majority of the main cast are females.
Are you sure we weren't talking about Birds of Prey?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe. I mean, they both kind of seem like meh movies I've never seen, based on quality,
films,
right?
Yeah,
but they kept advertising.
Let's put it that way.
They kept advertising Birds of Prey the same way, and I was like,
yeah,
I'm not going to watch a movie just because it has a woman leading. That doesn't make it good. Like, if that was the case, I could buy a camera, record it, put a female lead, and make it a great movie that the whole world would watch. I'd win an Oscar for making a crappy homemade movie.
Needs to be good. A film just needs to be good. You can't sell it on the characters that are in on the premise of that, on the premise of women. Then film is going to make
women
millions.
leads.
No,
that's
all
the thing.
female
film needs to be good.
There's a very good example actually. There was a really good comedy. I think a really good TV show. I remember someone saying it was really good, and it was like it was called I May Destroy You. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. And they were giving it great reviews, and they were just talking about it. They didn't mention anything. Then I saw the advertising for BBC. I was like, support this creator because she's black. And I'm like, no, it's a good TV show by someone who happens to be black. And I'm just like, why? It's like, BBC, are you fucking idiot or something?
No.
Like, you literally just. It's like, for God's sake.
Look, as a black person, look, I know people hate hearing that, but as a black person, I find it very patronizing when a company says you should enjoy this product because it is produced by a black or ethnic minority.
Yeah.
It's just and it's patronizing, and it assumes that people of that culture can't speak for themselves.
Yeah,
And it's the same thing with all these kind of patronizing things they say about women. It's like the one thing that annoys me about the reboot is that actually it's not the fact that they're female leads, it's that the women aren't treated to launch their own TV shows or they launch their own films. Ocean's 8 is a great film, but for some reason there's part of me that goes, there was no reason they could not make a heist movie with those same characters and then just go with that rather than linking it to a franchise that a man had developed. Like it shows that there isn't trust in the industry to allow women to have actually these lead roles properly, but it kind of feels like a half gesture. Like they've done it because some guy in marketing said, "Oh, we're more likely to get bigger sales just by changing gender."
But to be fair, you admit that corporations in general use this whole progressive movement not as a actual statement, not as an actual. No, they don't even care about it. They just want to make money off it.
They have to be shown to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They go.
It's all
"Oh,
about perception.
yeah, exactly. So even all this stuff, everything they do, everything corporations do, like whether it's the LGBT, whether it's about
Oh god.
everything, absolutely everything about feminism, they don't actually care about the actual topic.
No, they don't.
They just do
No.
it because they know people out there
they-
will defend them if they release this, and those people will pay money. They don't
There's
care.
Yeah.
They don't care about the
Hot,
message.
hot take. The difference between caring or not is the difference between She-Ra and Voltron. Because She-Ra has gay characters, but it's never really brought up. It's not like
Yeah.
overly said, here's a thing. You just go, cool, that felt natural. Voltron's like, hey, we've got a gay character, turns up, and then his lover turns up for half a frame, and they say, look, we're being progressive. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not how it fucking works.
Well, also they didn't make the characters gay. Everyone wanted to make gay.
It
Yeah.
does make a important point about where the film industry is going, because I have someone who is a close friend of mine that I know someone who's a close friend of mine, and I'm not gonna shame them on this podcast, mainly because probably no one's listening anyway. But even if people were listening, this person will recommend shows to me because they'll like pick up a show and they'll be like, this show's got a gay lead, or this show focuses on transgender people, or this show has a black person, an Asian person, a gay person, a transgender person, diversity, considers multiple viewpoints and opinions. You should watch it. And then I'm like, but what's the plot about?
This is the way that the cinema industry is going to go, or might go. It's going to go the way of Disney, the kind of like Disney does it. So they pander, big thing. Oh, Star Wars, we're going to have the first openly gay couple in Star Wars, which gets like 3 seconds of a kiss and then that's it. But it's going to be cut the Chinese and the Middle Eastern version, because of course we don't want to upset them over there, do we now?
Yeah.
We don't want to the money bags over there. Oh,
well, speaking
Finn,
of Star Wars,
we have Finn on the front cover of Star Wars, The Force Awakens in US and the UK. Finn is there. He's a black. He's
so
black.
annoying.
He's great. In China, he's a background character. Oh gosh, he doesn't even show up on the poster because Mr. Big Winnie the Pooh doesn't like black people. It's literally.
I think he's stuck in the rabbit hole there.
There isn't a single thing. Like every time a Hollywood movie is advertised, I give 2 flying shits about it because I know it's basic pandering.
The thing is, if you can't recommend me a film based on its story, its style, its direction, or whatever, and you have to instead go, "Oh, the cast is this, the cast is that," and you've immediately lost my interest at that point.
Yeah, it's a bad sign,
and that's the biggest problem is that a lot of these films, it just makes the argument worse because there isn't actually those good films you can go, this is good stuff, and there are plenty out there. Like Aliens is such a good movie and has a female lead, and there's like one of those things where good films should come first. If they have diverse characters because of it, then it's fine. I think going back to the messages, you were talking about how the media's going. Like I remember the Guardian made a huge big piece about Dunkirk and how it was Brexit propaganda, and it just made me just go, what the fuck? Because it's like,
apparently we're not allowed to adapt history anymore, guys.
Yeah,
the problem
we don't agree with it
the
anymore.
problem with
There's not enough
Dunkirk,
women in World War One and Two. Let me
the
ask
problem
you
with
this.
Dunkirk and 1911 is that there were so many World War II movies that had existed beforehand. So a lot of people looked at Dunkirk like, oh great, another World War II movie, another movie about Winston Churchill. Please stop. Because like when you were in secondary school, for example, how many times do you learn about World War II and Nazi Germany, and you're like, please stop. Please stop. I don't want to learn about this again. No. Teacher, you're rejected. Come up with a better lesson plan, or I'm not attending. Get out of here. Like, no, come on. I feel like they have a bit of a valid point with Dunkirk.
I mean,
No, it's fine to make a historical movie because historical movies can have a different experience. You know, one story told here might have a completely different story from a different opinion or different perspective. There's nothing wrong with making a historical movie. The problem is when articles are written that says, oh, you know, this film is a bit too white or a bit too male, but you know, that's the historical evidence. A lot of people who fought in the war were white men. So there's that historical accuracy of it. Do you have a problem with that? Did you see women on the front of the trenches during the war? Did you?
Yeah,
Because
basically they want to censor people's creative vision, is what they want to
yeah,
do.
well, not even that. They just want to censor history. If history
Yeah, they
doesn't
want to
fit our
yeah.
then we don't want it to be. We don't want it to be history. If black people aren't the winners in the end, or if black people aren't portrayed as the golden ticket in the end, we don't want it. Well, what?
I think the big frustration is that a lot of history that is told in historical films is very much white, and because history is written by the victor, and that's very.
Yeah.
You could easily argue that an alternative version of said story could be made, and I think there are plenty of stories out there that would actually be very interesting. But
Yeah.
You
But the
want
problem is that then you have to try and sell that very thing to the American market.
To the majority.
Now, put it this way: there was a great film called Master and Commander, and it's all about and does a very good job of portraying what's it like to be on sea and fighting. The thing is, they had to completely make it fictional because they couldn't show the film to Americans because the Americans were the villain of the book, and that's what you're literally fighting over. They changed the villain to Napoleon because Napoleon is an easy punch bag.
When was this?
Oh, like in the 18th century, like but
Yeah, fair enough.
the whole thing that the actual boat, which is the thing that's actually designed on, which is called Old Ironside, which is actually still in service in the US, is they had to change it to French because the Americans couldn't be the villains of the stories, and that's what you're literally fighting. It's not just that; it's now also people's public perceptions of the film will immediately get shut down, even if you're trying to do a right thing of trying, like even films that are trying to show transgender issues won't get made because you have to have a transgendered actor in the film. And the problem is a lot of marketing is based on who you can get in the lead, and at the moment there isn't any major transgender actors who are popular enough to carry a film, which then leaves you in a catch-22.
Ellen Page.
Hmm?
Ellen Page, she's transgender now.
Really?
I thought she was
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I actually don't know
recently.
who Ellen Page is. What movies have they been in?
Have you watched?
Oh, sorry, Ellen Page. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Juno.
I honestly thought I thought you were talking about Ellen DeGeneres, and I was like, what?
No. Before we go back to that, I just want to mention, if you want to watch a good historical ethnic film, Hotel Rwanda, watch it. It's a fantastic.
Yes, that's a great film.
That is an amazing film.
I've actually never
I love
seen
that.
I've never even seen it.
Hotel Rwanda is about. So just like a short summary, it's about the Rwandan genocide that happened. So it was a massive war between two different not two different ethnic groups, but they were classed as two different ethnic groups by Belgians. So there's the Hutu and the Tutsis, who were sort of judged on the ways of their noses. I believe it was their noses, right? The size of their noses. And so it's sort of a civil war broke out after political issues happened. But I would really recommend watching that film.
All right. Definitely will give it a watch then.
Interesting. So Ellen Page, what movies have they been in? I still don't know who they are.
Juno.
She was in
She's also in the Umbrella show.
Yes.
Can't remember it.
She's also like Ellie from The Last of Us is modelled off her.
Oh, do you mean the Umbrella Academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Umbrella Academy. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. The thing is, to fair is now she could probably do it because she now has the clout from Umbrella Academy to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's actually something that. But then the thing is that she hates being typecast as that being that person.
Yeah.
But that is
So,
the difficulty.
The thing is, she was typecasted
with that
as
situation. That's the difficulty with that situation currently, because lots of film directors and the film industry in general seem to want more representation. But in order to get more representation, people are going to have to be typecast, at least initially, until it becomes a norm, and then typecasting doesn't become a thing anymore. So, transgender actors, gay actors, black actors, minorities, whether it be ethnic or any other kind of minority actors, kind of have to take that risk of being typecast in the short term, hoping that there'll be a long-term benefit where typecasting won't be an issue anymore.
Yeah, usually when it comes to actors getting typecasted, it can take them like a decade plus before they actually start like not getting that. It happened to it happened to David Tennant for ages after Doctor Who. Like nobody wanted to like put him in like big roles anymore because they like, oh, like you're the Doctor, we don't want you.
Yeah. Same with Daniel Craig.
Yeah, Daniel Craig as well. That's what happens when you get typecasted for certain roles. Directors don't want to take you because they're like, you can only really play this character. And David Tennant's shown he has range.
Oh, he has absolute range.
Fantastic.
But that's a different sort of beast. I feel like if actors are typecast because they had one iconic film or TV series or some sort of media, then even though they're not happy about it, they're willing to take that on. Because at least they did have that successful series, film, or media form, and at least they have some clout, even if it's just off one piece of work. Whereas if you're typecast because of your gender, for example, then I imagine that's a lot tougher to deal with. But I still believe that that's something those type of actors are going to have to take in the short term. Like, yes, they're going to have to take the L of having to be typecast as the gay actor, for example. But what if they are typecast as the gay one, and then they do really well in that film, and they get more and more films, and then maybe 5 years down the line,
you haven't improved diversity. You've still got the one gay. You got the one gay actor.
Yes, but my point is,
it's kind of like how Kevin Hart is like the funny black man. And like it's really it.
He's the only. He's now unfortunately the like when they say, oh, we need a funny small man. Oh, hey, we've got Kevin Hart because it's small.
Yeah.
You need a big burly guy. Got The Rock.
Yeah,
I think once you open the doors, well, the thing is,
like even in sport, they've tried this very same thing. They've tried this very idea that you've had to have a certain number of people to ensure that the film or the sports team is diverse, and therefore they put certain people in. And half the time the sportsmen know the only reason why the game picked is because of the color of the skin, and then you create a tokenistic atmosphere within the film, which doesn't actually reward the actor for actually being in the film, and actually overall what's it called? Regresses the image, the public undermines the public image, and for other stuff. Like for example, most people know Liam Neeson as an action movie guy.
Yes,
but for a long time before Taken, he wasn't. He was a dramatic guy, but no one would realize. Think about that. You think about Ben Affleck; he was always associated with terrible films until he literally had to start from the ground up just to get a film. And that's because the film industry is so fickle. Like the guy who plays, I can't remember the guy who plays Finn. He might struggle to get a role with the amount of
John Boyega,
stuff he's been, the amount of stuff he's now talked about his film, regardless of whether you believe he's right or wrong. Because he's badmouthed the company that he got employed by, no one's going to employ him because they don't want some guy who's going to distract their public image. And you can argue the reason why he could probably argue that he's right because of the Chinese audience.
Yeah.
They did the Pacific Rim though.
Interesting point.
Yeah.
You know what? It's also ironic. You said about like Liam Neeson, and he was in Schindler's List, which is a really great film.
It is
really one of my favorite films.
One of the classics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. That's one you could say is outside of his range. I'd say.
Well, no, it's not outside.
Well, no, that's the thing. It isn't. That's the thing. It isn't.
Stereotypical range.
We now think it's outside his range because his most recent films are all about action films because that's what he wanted to do. He decided because after his wife died, he decided to just not worry about being a overly done dramatic actor. He just wanted to enjoy doing films, and the films he enjoyed doing were action films, and that's why he's chosen them. Same with Nicolas Cage. He wanted the money, so he took easy low budget films that pay him a lot of money to be the man, and he saw the marketing stuff. He gets paid a huge amount of money.
Same with Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
I don't know.
Jim Carrey's a good example because Jim Carrey has proven he can play serious roles extremely well.
Yes.
Yeah. 2 examples I will give is Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was a fantastic
that's the one.
He's also been in The Truman Show, which was interesting one.
They're the 2 movies.
That's a really nuanced performance.
Yeah, he has a fantastic range. He has a superb range.
Like it's interesting watching him in like I was watching some stuff that people like actors like didn't mean like were mistakes. And there's that scene in The Grinch where he takes the tablecloth and it doesn't fall over. Like he just whips it out. That was completely on accident. He did that just on accident and stuff like that. But his ability just to come off and just compete, to continue to act. Same with a lot of his roles. You hear about stuff where he's made a mistake. He's just gone on and just carried on acting, and it's worked out better. And that just shows he's a good
slightly
actor.
unrelated example I have to bring up is Bruce Willis, because I feel like now I know that as soon as Bruce Willis is cast for a movie, it's going to be garbage. I know that as soon as Bruce Willis is in the cast, no matter who else is in that cast, no matter who's directing, no matter what the film's about, I know it's going to be a terrible film, because all of his films seem to be exactly the same. Case in point, in 2020, he was part of a film called Hard Kill. Like, what kind of name is that for a film, firstly? Forget about the content. What kind of film do you call Hard Kill? What does that even mean?
Yeah, that's what literally I
This is terrible.
I honestly thought someone made a parody of Die Hard and then went, wait, we can get Bob Willis in here. And everyone went, it's supposed to be a parody.
Bob Willis.
Trying to get Bob
Yeah,
Willis.
it was the parody.
Trying to get Bob Willis, but he accidentally got Bruce Willis.
Yeah. So, hey, wait, you got the actual guy?
Oh
shit, sorry.
With it. Oh my god.
Yeah,
That's
so
not going to make this confusing at all.
Obviously, what I meant was Bruce Willis. I thought I said Bruce Willis, but maybe not.
I said Bob.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis is another
thank
good
God.
example.
Whew.
Bruce Willis is another good example where he's proven that he can play stuff outside of what the action role, but that's all he plays.
Like, he was in the wasn't he the Sixth Sense?
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
I think
was-
he was in the
Pretty
Sixth Sense.
decent.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
really good. I think
Yeah.
he was in that, actually.
Sixth Sense is a really good movie.
He
Yeah,
could do
but
it.
unfortunately,
went
it's not like that
About
anymore.
M. Night Shyamalan's films, but he's made good films.
He has,
But now you know if Bruce Willis is in a film. Now you know if Bruce Willis is in a film, it's going to be garbage.
But that's
Like, it's just gonna
the
be terrible.
nature of Hollywood, though. Like, they find you and they just start putting you in. And as an actor, you start to take roles not because you think it's gonna be a good script. You're taking it just because it pays well.
Yeah. And because you know you're not going to get that paid that much again, so you're literally in those kind of like, okay, I'm going to get paid a stupid amount of money for this role, and I might as well take it whilst I still can. And that is what, and the problem because of that that very same industry is just prevented that kind of diversity. Like you think about the most famous black actors, the Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, unfortunately, the brain's gone. Chadwick Boseman, who's unfortunately passed away, and all that kind of stuff. Like you just think about, and then you think of like other ones who looked like they were going to break the mold, like Cuba Gooding Jr., and then just never came because of the movie choices they had, or Eddie Murphy and his movie choices. You think about the number of times that actually there could have been an opportunity for increased diversity, but the films that actor then chose, or the films they were offered, which we don't know which way around it was, has caused them their careers to end earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like,
and on that note, I think
we should
it's probably
wrap this
appropriate that we call it an end, close curtains on this
It's-
podcast.
Welcome to the downer ending where racism will always exist and we can't fight it.
It
Well,
should
yeah,
it should be a
exactly.
downer
Oh,
ending.
I mean, to be fair, you're
the
foolish
episode
if you
ending
think
is a sad
otherwise.
topic.
Mm.
The
I
episode
hope they
ending
can
is a
prove it
sad theme.
by not pandering.
We need our fans to want every episode to keep going and never end. So yeah, it is sad. Play the world's smallest violin because episode 2 has come to a close. Any final remarks, guys?
Fans.
If you haven't gathered by this point, yeah, our podcast can take a cynical nature.
Yeah.
You don't say.
Sorry, guys.
2021.
Yeah, if that's not for you, then sorry.
And that is officially the end of episode 2. So what I'd like to say is thank you, listener, for listening. You are the greatest fan we'll ever have, and we'll never forget you when we get rich and famous and successful, although realistically we will. We might as well say it now, so loyalty.
Can I just say, we are definitely talking about you, the listener. You, and only you.
Just the one.
So
Only
have a
you.
good one, listener, and we'll see you next week.
Jesus.